Well, good evening, everybody. As you guys know, this is the segment where I do let you talk for 5 minutes.
Good evening.
Good
Everybody
evening.
okay? Everybody okay?
Yep.
I'm good.
Doing fine.
Yes.
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 Yes, we're good.
So folks still coming in. I'm going to be letting them in for the next couple of minutes. Please join me in a prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for your wonderful hand upon us. We thank you for the blessings of life, the blessings of wealth, the blessings of health. We just ask that you continue to guide our steps. And then in all ways, we acknowledge you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So, guys are here nice and early, and I'm still letting some folks in. Anybody have any questions before I get to a review of the homework? We've got about 30 seconds or so. More than happy to answer any specific questions if you have any. So speak now, forever hold your peace. Going once, going twice. All right. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody. So thank you very much. And then we're going to just jump right on into a review of the homework. So let me go ahead and start sharing screen. And here is our Facebook group. Oh, look, there's Miss Jackson on the phone. Dorothy, put the phone down. Join the class. All right, so here's day one homework. And again, thank you guys for being so good as to make sure you're putting your homework in the right place. There's day three homework, which of course would have been yesterday. And then Mamie, I need for you to put your homework in the right place. So if you need some help, so I see you know how to upload it. So Mamie, I'm going to let you move this over, but basically I need for this to go in the right place. And it says 114. So assuming this is either day one or day three homework. Oh, okay, great. See, Robert Eugene saying, hey, upload your homework here. See how that works? Helping each other out. That's what we want to be doing. So thank you, sir. Thank you for doing that. All right, so let me jump back over to day three. And of course, when I finish tonight, it'll say day four, upload homework here. And let's see what folks are talking about. And let's see what Sherman's commenting on, if there's anything sort of new and exciting from last night's homework versus any prior day homework. So first one in was David Allen. Congratulations, Dave. Physical therapy on the knee, that's a good thing. He's got it here. Again, when I look to see what your number one goal is, I don't care what your number one goal is so much as if it's really your number one goal, I want to see it in your daily schedule. Because like, how can it be your number one goal and you didn't put any time aside for it? All right. Got some planning exercises. Cool. Looks good. All right. Next up, I asked one person, I said, hey, why are you just putting work in your schedule? Why don't you put some more detail? He's like, if I put more detail in, I'd have to kill you because I'm doing top secret work. I was like, okay, I don't know. I get it. All right. But otherwise, yes, you want to break down your day into the component parts, because when we start getting into the section on automation and putting your business on autopilot, if you don't have your day broken down into its component parts, how will you ever know what part of your day you can put on somebody else's desk? How will you know what part of your day you could get a piece of software to deal with? So breaking the day down into its component parts makes that so much easier. So please, 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 those of you who are just putting in work, break it down. All right, like here, just sort of blocked out. Don't do that to yourself. Put what's actually going to happen during the day and break it down. Because if you break it down, then you can say, first question I should be asking myself is, should I be doing this? Well, if you're praying, meditating, and reading the Bible, yes, we all should be doing that. But if it's something along the lines of working on a project and the project has 3 or 4 pieces, and you're going to hear this as a reoccurring theme from you guys. In fact, tonight's the night I really sort of introduce this concept that whatever it is that you are doing, whether it's at work or it's in real estate investing, it can be broken down into 3 big pieces. And those 3 big pieces can be broken down into 3 smaller pieces. And those 3 smaller pieces can be broken down into 3 smaller pieces. And if you get into the habit of actually planning out your day using a planning tool like this, and you think in terms of, okay, there's 3 big pieces, and then each one of those pieces has 3 pieces, and each one has those pieces, and you start putting it into your schedule, what you will quickly realize is, there's stuff I'm doing over and over and over again. Maybe I should automate that. Or there's stuff that's on my calendar, stuff that's on my daily task that I don't need to be doing. Here's a perfect example. Let me see whose work this is. This is Malika. So Malika says, I want to check the MLS. Guess what? In the future, Malika can pay somebody to check the MLS for her. Get that off her plate, get herself back an hour of the day or half an hour of the day. So the more you are committed to really breaking down the component parts, the easier it is to find areas of things that are on your schedule that you should not be doing. Either handing it over to somebody else if you're in a job situation, or handing it over to somebody that you pay to get it done so that you can go on and do something else, like maybe go to the beach with your family. Our ultimate goal is to make 90% or keep 90% of our profits from our business, but do less than 10% of the work. Well, here's one. I had a nice little dialogue, a nice conversation with Trinita this morning, where she was talking about her big aha moment was go in motion, stay in motion. I said, well, you know, I stole that from your brother. So I actually got that from Trina's brother, Terrence. He was a big influence on my life when I got to business school. But yes, breaking down your schedule into the component parts helps you to better manage your day and manage the tasks that comprise your day, and gives you an easy way to start the automation process. Now, that's not what we're talking about now, but what I'm trying to do, guys, is get you in the habit of using these forms and using them properly, so that when we get to the part of the course talking about automation, it just becomes second nature. And I would beg with you, plead with you, see it in my face, stop fighting me on this topic. Stop fighting me. Just do what Sherman says to do. Because you may very well start having aha moments about your own dang life. Oh, wow. So that's how I get an extra hour in my day. Oh, wow. That's the secret that Tyler Perry learned from Oprah. Oh, wow. This is how you go from making 6 figures to double 6 figures to triple 6 figures to 7 figures, because you're getting more stuff done with the hours God gave you. And that's not possible if you keep fighting me on this topic. And if you won't do it now, when will you do it? You're not going to do it next week. And when we get to the part on automation, you'll be the very one with the lip poked out going, Stop fighting me. Just do what I ask you to do. We're going to dramatically pick up the pace over the next 10 days. We're not going to be talking about calendar anymore. This is the low-hanging fruit. This is the easy stuff. This is the stuff that gives you automatic productivity in your life. This is the stuff that helps you find back and snatch back that extra half an hour to 2 hours in a day so you can actually do this lesson and participate in this class. But if you fight me on this, oh my gosh, wait until we get into the money-making stuff. Ain't nothing I've said so far is about putting dollars in your pocket. Everything I'm going to talk about starting tonight on into the next 10 days is about putting money in your pocket. And if you're going to fight me on moving things around in your calendar or auditing your schedule or finding an extra hour a day, if you're going to fight me on this, how much more are you going to fight me when it comes time to me showing you how to make $5 grand this month? Stop fighting me. It's not in your best interest. Okay? Just saying. Just saying. Just saying. All right. So much for looking at the comments. The other thing I hope that you guys are seeing and getting in the flow of is this is how I coach and mentor when I'm doing group coaching, group mentoring. Like I will have in my schedule, spend an hour reviewing people's comments in the Facebook page and comment on it. And then I'll go do something else. And then I'll come back to, okay, spend another hour and I'll go do something. It just depends on what my schedule looks like. If I can do a solid 2 or 3 hours like I did a couple of days ago, I'll just do it, bang it out, and I'm done. Today, my schedule was a little bit different. So I was like coming in for a half an hour, going out, coming back in for a half an hour, going out, coming back in for a half an hour. This is how I coach, and this is how I teach, and this is how I mentor. Well, I shouldn't say teach. What I'm doing now is teaching, but this is how I coach and mentor on an individualized basis when you're in a group coaching program with me. This is how I do it. And so anybody who's chosen so far to not put your stuff in, I got news for you. You're not hurting me. If you don't upload your stuff into Facebook and give me a chance to comment on it and give you a little insight and maybe tweak something here or there, you're not hurting me. Who are you hurting? What does I say? When you point your finger at somebody, there's 3 more pointing back. You're hurting yourself when you choose not to do the assignments I give. I mean, come on, guys. Can we just be honest? This homework that I asked you to do, what did it take you? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? You won't invest 10 minutes in yourself to snatch back an extra hour tomorrow? You won't invest 10 minutes in yourself and another 2 minutes to upload it to get an opportunity to have Sherman look over your shoulder, see what you're doing, and make some suggestions, some comments, some critiques that could possibly begin to change your life? If you won't invest in yourself, for goodness sake, please don't be mad at me when you take away the opportunity for me to coach you and mentor you. And some of you guys saw my post earlier. Let me go ahead and bring that up real quick. Let's talk about this real quick. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But believe it or not, I have had at this point 4 different people attempt to private message me through Facebook. Facebook has this private messenger feature. I can't turn it off on my computer. So when I get on my computer, I actually see it, but I intentionally did not install Messenger on my iPhone. So when I'm going around doing my day, on the treadmill, cooling down, eating breakfast, eating lunch, sort of just looking at stuff, I don't see these instant messenger requests that people are sending my way. But when I bring up the computer, I do. And the truth of the matter is, I oftentimes don't bring up the computer until I'm ready to come on the class. First time I opened the computer today was about an hour ago. And people are sending me stuff saying, hey, Sherman, will you look at this? And can I send you this? And I'm like, what are you talking about? This class is not a private mentoring, private coaching with Sherman. I never promised you that. I said I was going to help you. I said it was going to be live, and it is. And I said I would help you, and I am. But when I'm doing a group coaching class like this, all of my commentary, all of my suggestions, all of my critiquing is done inside this Facebook page. And then once we move it off Facebook and put it into REIU, it's going to be done through REIU or some combination thereof. But I'm not, you think I'm gonna let you send me your homework in my email? So I now have to take time out of my schedule to go pull down your email, comment on your email, send you back your email, and oh, by the way, nobody ever gets a chance to see the commentary. That's not how group coaching mentoring works. Now, if you want private coaching, if you want private mentoring, follow the instructions in this, and this is pinned to the top. It's an announcement, right? Click the link and sign up for some private coaching with Sherman. But that's not what I promised, and that's not what this is. So please, for goodness sake, those of you who've been attempting to reach out to me privately for this class, stop it and just follow the instructions. Just do what Sherman says, please. And you'll get more coaching, more mentoring, more feedback. I mean, are you guys actually paying attention and seeing what's happening in the group with people giving commentary to each other? I mean, you guys are starting to help coach each other. That's the way it's supposed to work. Somebody said, hey, I'm having a problem uploading information, right? Here's one, Camilla's talking to Steve, say, hey, check your iPad settings within the Facebook group and see if you can change. See, you guys are helping to coach and mentor each other, even on stuff that I don't know about. And that's why it's designed to happen inside the group, because that's what you signed up for. Now, again, I'm just sort of, I sound agitated, but I'm really not. If you want private coaching mentoring, click the button. You're not going to get it while we're finishing up the next 2 weeks of this class. That's not going to happen. So please don't sign up for private coaching and then be mad at me like, Sherman, I had a question about the class and I can't even get on your calendar for 2 weeks. This is not a private coaching mentoring class. This is a group mentoring coaching class. But if you want private mentoring, you got something specific you want to talk about, something you don't want to share with the rest of the group, then by all means, sign up for a block of private coaching time with me. I normally do it in half-day increments. I also have a 90-day program that this talks about where you get a couple of half days and then you get access to me through my cell phone, etc., for 90 days, okay? But this class, this 21 Days Real Estate Riches class, did not include, and I never promised you private coaching mentoring with me. I promise live coaching, I promise coaching, and that's what I'm doing, and I'm delivering on the promise. But please, 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 use the Facebook group. And once we got this ported over to REIU, use REIU, because you're getting the benefit of not only having me comment, but having the rest of the class seeing, and if you're struggling with something, sometimes they'll see it faster, quicker, better than I will. And that's the way this is designed to work, because this is a group coaching class. Okay. All right. So enough of that. Enough of the lecture. Anybody have any questions of me before we move on to the next thing? And feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat box. Oh, got a lot more people. Sorry. Got a lot more people to let in. Pays to be on time. Then you're not standing around going, how come I'm not getting in? Because Sherman's busy coaching, teaching, mentoring, and dealing with stuff. All right. Where's my chat? Chat, where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay, so William says, I thought last night's assignment was to only do ahas. It was. So Shiva says, me too. I'm not exactly sure where those particular comments are coming from. So William and Shiva, if you want to elaborate, last night's homework was just to do ahas, and that's all we talked about. So unless I missed something. So you want to, I don't know, I'm not sure I understand the comments, guys, but two of you put them there, so.
No, you're good. No, you answered what seemed to be a question for William, and I thought the same thing. So that's good. That's fine.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Hey, but Sherman, but I guess I put it in there because you were commenting on daily tasks as you were doing the review. That was what I was.
Yeah. So to be totally fair, the specific homework was to watch Josh Cohen's video and see if you had any aha moments and upload. That was the homework assignment. But I also said, to be totally fair, if anybody wanted me to take another shot at commenting on their schedules, their daily task schedules, I would also do that. So it was not a required assignment, but it was available as an option, and some people chose to avail themselves of that option to get one more crack at having me comment on their daily calendar. Okay, no?
Sherman, I also thought you had said you were going to send out the catalog.
I did.
Should look through it. Somehow I missed it. I looked for it. Am I
Probably
on your
in your spam filter. That's probably in your spam filter. It's a fairly large document. Can I see a show of hands real quick of people who did get the email from me that said catalog? Okay, so that's like more than 90%. So I would suggest, Steve, check your spam filter. Nikki says she got it. It was 20 pages. And I said in the email, don't print it out, right? But just have that there as a reference and peruse through it at your leisure. I just, again, as I said yesterday, I want folks to understand this is a journey. And I know the out-of-town gurus want to convince you, hey, come spend 3 days with us and you'll know everything you need to know about real estate. Please. It's a journey. And the purpose of giving you guys the catalog yesterday is to understand whatever part of the journey you're on, just getting started, having been at this for a while, Realinvestors is here to help you in every step of the journey if you want us to. And I'm just giving you guys that catalog as a reference so you can see. And quite frankly, also in this class, so that some of you guys who have some really, what's the word I want to use for it? Some of you guys are a little nervous about, well, hey, are you going to teach me this and you're going to teach me that and you're going to teach me this? And a couple of times I've already said, no, I'm not going to teach you that in this class. And folks be like, well, where do I learn it? Well, that's why I gave you the catalog, to show you that there's other classes that really are designed to go into greater depth and really teach and show you what that's all about. Okay. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody again, because I really do want to get into the lecture for tonight. From this point on, please do me a favor. And if you do have any other additional questions, put them in the chat box. And if for whatever reason I don't fully understand or or I'll ask you individually, or we'll take a little question break. But I do have a lot of stuff to cover tonight. And I would strongly suggest that if you didn't print out an AHA sheet, at least have a pencil and paper. We are successfully recording into the Facebook group. So there will be a recording for you guys to go back and look at. So if I go too fast, or I don't go into enough depth, or you want to watch it again, it'll be there. But I got a lot of material tonight, and I'm sort of coming to closure on the sort of real estate 101. You know, last night we were talking about how the gurus take advantage of people because they're basically selling information, and people are thinking they're signing up for learning and classes and mentoring and coaching, and what they quickly realize is that they're going into a hotel ballroom for 3 days to get a brain dump. And walking out of a ballroom after 3 days with, 55 to 100 pages worth of notes is not the same thing as actually learning a topic. And any of us who remember high school days, college days, there was many a time we sat through a lecture and took a bunch of notes, but that doesn't mean that we were capable of actually doing the thing once we got out in the field. Real learning, real training, real teaching probably looks more like K through 3, kindergarten through 3rd grade, than it looks like anything else you had in your past education. Why? What did you learn in kindergarten? How to play nice with people and not pee in the sandbox. That's kind of an important skill, right? What'd you learn in 1st grade? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and how to count to 100. Those are kind of important skills, aren't they? Yeah. What'd you learn in the 1st grade? How the basics of writing and the basics of writing sentences, etc. Well, think about it. Of everything you've done in your life since the 12th grade, how many times have you used algebra? How many times have you used quantum physics? How many times have you used biology? Unless you went into those careers, probably not much. But how many times have you counted to 100 in your life? How many times have you done basic math, 2 plus 2? Every day. How many times have you had to write a text, a letter, a message, right? The stuff you learn kind of kindergarten through 3rd, maybe 4th grade, that's the stuff you use every single day. Now stop and think about it. How long did the teacher take to teach you A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and 1 to 10? Like seemingly the whole class, a whole semester, right? Why? Why did they spend so much time on the foundational basic stuff? Because they knew it was important and they knew you would need it for the rest of your life. And you know for a fact, nobody put you into a 3-day boot camp to teach you how to do the alphabet. They went over it and over it and over it again. It's okay, now it's your turn. Okay, now you do it. Okay, now use it in a sentence, or you know what I'm saying? Building the proper foundation is not something you can do in 3 days. I am taking some liberties teaching you guys some stuff over a 21-day period, right? But the real learning will begin when you do the lesson. Some of you who watch people upload their calendar, but you didn't actually do it, you're like, that looks interesting. Some of you who actually uploaded your calendars, can I tell you a dirty little secret that you've already figured out, but other folks may not have? If you actually did your calendar and actually uploaded it to Facebook and had me comment on it, you had the benefit of experiencing me coaching you, mentoring one-on-one. And the simple, dirty little secret is, I don't care how much I know, how good a teacher I am, if you don't give me a chance to coach you and mentor you, I can't. And the real learning for some of you began not when you were sitting there listening to a lecture with Sherman, it's when you actually uploaded your homework and had me comment on it. And those of you who had the benefit of having me comment on it, critique it, I think some of you are like, he actually read this. How does he know I'm doing this? Because you put it on the paper. Oh, he actually read it. You gave me the courtesy of being your mentor and your coach. And you got way more out of the 2-3 sentence, 2-minute interaction and couple of back and forths because you told me that. You guys said that in your comments. Oh, wow, I didn't think about it that. Oh, wow, thanks. Oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. You who actually did the homework and uploaded it gave me a chance to be your mentor and your coach. And everybody else who kind of watched that happen, you'll be the first ones going, well, how come Sherman's not talking to me? How come Sherman's not helping me? because you didn't give me the chance. And I got news for you. Next 10 days, we're no longer walking. We're going to start jogging. 7 days after that, we're going to be running. If you give me the chance to be your mentor and your coach, I'll do that. But if you don't do your assignments, if you don't make me quote verse and scripture. If you won't be faithful in the little things, you're not giving me a chance to really help you when we get to the big ones. I'm just saying. All right. All right, let's get to the work for tonight. Let me go ahead and start showing my screen. Oops, I need to change something before I start showing that screen because I'm on the wrong thingy. That's the right thingy. All right, now let's show the screen. Boom and boom. Guys, see my screen okay? Yes? Yes? See the screen okay? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, this is the point where everybody's muted. Please stay that way. Just give me a thumbs up. All right, because if everybody starts talking, it's going to become a train wreck, and I'm trying to avoid train wrecks here. All right, let me find it where it is on Facebook, because sometimes there's a slight delay, and I need to make sure that you're seeing the same time I'm talking. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and there's still a little bit of a delay. So there we go. Okay, so let's talk about this. And I want to share screen, but I don't want to share the whole screen. I only want to share part of the screen. Okay, so 21 days to real estate riches, and we are here, finishing up week 1, and tonight we're talking about what works. So last night, or yesterday, excuse me, I spent a fair amount of time talking about what doesn't work and why it doesn't work, and how really the out-of-town real estate gurus are all following this sort of Russ Whitney 3-day boot camp model, and talked about why that 3-day boot camp model is really not compatible with how adults really learn. So today I'm going to start talking about what does work. And again, if you brought your AHA sheets, be prepared to take notes. And if you didn't bring your AHA sheets, just grab a pen and paper. But let's make sure that we get some stuff written down so that you guys have some great questions to ask me at the end of today's presentation. Today's kind of the transition point from Sherman teaching, lecturing, and you guys taking notes to us actually rolling up our sleeves and getting some stuff done. So today really is sort of that transition point. And tomorrow you can expect to start seeing some pretty heavy duty homework. So please, please, please adjust your calendars, use your daily task sheets, adjust your calendars appropriately so that you can at least be with me for the lecture part and then allocate maybe a little more time. You know, you have homework assignments for this past week, or past 4 days, excuse me, have been like maybe 10, 15 minutes for most of you. Homework moving forward after tonight is going to be like at least a half an hour for most of you. So start planning for a little more time dedicated to your homework piece after we finish, okay? So we've already taken a look at the Facebook page. And again, thank you guys so very much for respecting that that's our primary tool. That's my primary tool for doing the group coaching, mentoring with you guys. If you haven't been uploading and you're struggling with it, ask for help. Some of you have asked for help and you're getting the help on the page itself. Some of you, if you need some additional help, reach out to Need Help, ask Lisa. Lisa can grab a team member, or she herself can help you get this thing down. But I really, really, really want to encourage everybody to get your homework assignments done, get them uploaded on the Facebook page, and give me the chance to coach you, mentor you by actually seeing what you posted. Today, again, just a real quick recap. We talked about the fact on the first day there's going to be 3 different modules over 3 different weeks, and each one of those modules has 3 very specific components. And today we're really on that component of the module, which is Real Estate 101, and talking about the correct place to get started, in my opinion, because I think this is what works. It's what worked for me after 20 years of failing. But really sort of where should you start as an investor, why I believe this is the correct place to start as an investor, and talking about these sort of 13 fundamental surefire ways to build a six-figure part-time real estate income working from home. And for those of you who may not be familiar with the term six figures, when I say six figures, I mean generally around 100 grand. It could be 90, it could be 125. Okay, so I'm not specifically saying 100, but when I say six figures, I mean this is an opportunity to make about $100,000 a year, part-time, from home, call it a home-based business. When you hear me talking about multiple six figures, I'm talking about 100. I'm talking about more than 100. I'm talking about $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. And when you hear me use the phrase seven figures, I'm talking about $1 million revenue. So today we're going to talk about the 13 surefire ways to make 100 grand a year, six figures, 100 grand more or less, working from home in your real estate investor business. Okay, so we are on day 4 of our 21 days. Just as a quick recap, and I'll start off by saying, contrary to popular belief, there's not 101 ways to make money in real estate. And I know many of us have heard that phrase. I used to hear that phrase a lot. Oh, there's 101 ways. Oh, buy my directory in 101 ways. Oh, here's 101. No, it's not 101. That's a gimmick. That's a trick. The reason why late night gurus want to convince you that there's 101 ways to do stuff is because they want to sell you 101 boot camps. if they're charging you on average $2,000 to $3,000 a boot camp, the more boot camps they can throw your way, the more money they can make. But the truth of the matter is there's not 101 ways to make money in real estate. There's 13 basic, and that's what we're going to cover today, 13 basic, 13 fundamental, 13 core ways to make money in real estate, that each one of which will put about $100,000 in your pocket. And the way I'm breaking it down and breaking it out today, any one of these 13 can be started as a part-time home-based business, which means if you have a full-time job, you can do this. If you have full-time obligations with family, maybe you're taking care of a loved one, a child, a parent, a family member. But any one of these 13 can be started at home, run from home, and put 100 grand more or less, again, six figures in your bank account on a part-time basis. And the beauty of that, if you stop and think about it, I'm about to give you a free aha moment for tonight. If you can make 100 grand on a part-time basis working from home, and then allow me to show you how to automate that, doesn't that mean that you can make 100 grand more or less from anywhere in the world, doing whatever you want to do? And I know for some of you, like, well, gee, Sherman, 100,000 is not enough. Okay, don't worry about it, because before this class is over, this class, like the class you are already participating in, before this class is over, when I get to the week 3 autopilot stuff, I'm gonna show you how to take that 100 grand and instantly turn it into $200,000 by doing one thing. And it's not hard. So when I say building a six-figure work from home, start part-time, picking one of these 13 ways, understand embedded in that is a multiple six-figure income. If I say, let me show you how to make 100,000 using this technique, as soon as you got that technique under your belt, I'm going to also show you how to double it like that, doing one thing. Okay? So hang in there with me. We're day 4, right? We got, what's that, 17 more days to go. But before we're done, I'm going to show you these 13 ways to make money. I'm going to show you tonight which one of these 13 is best, in my opinion, for 99.9%. And if you're in that 0.1% exception, we can talk about that too. Okay, we can talk about it in the group. We can talk about it tonight in the Q&A or the chat box, excuse me, chat feature. But for 99.9% of folks, there's like one way you should get started in this business. And if you focus on that one way and apply what I'm going to be teaching you over the next 17 days, you should expect to create a $100,000 a year or six-figure business, and also expect, if you do what I tell you to do or suggest you do, I'm not going to tell you to do it. You're grown folks. When I say words like need to, should do, you should be, like, those are just suggestions. You don't have to do anything I say. You don't have to show up for class. You don't have to be here tonight. You want to get out? Go. Bye. Have a good life. But my point is this. If you really want me to serve as your mentor and your coach and help you go from wherever you are now to where you want to be. I'm teaching you over the next 17 days how to put a 6-figure business in place and then double it. If you do half of what I tell you to do, half of it in the next several months, you'll be making 50 grand, double it, you're at 100. If you do exactly what I tell you to do, you should expect to be making 100 and you can double it to 200. And I will be teaching you exactly step by step how to do that over the next 17 days. All right. But the main thing I want you guys to know is that any one of these 13 will work if you work it. So it's not a function of, well, gee, Sherman, which one should I do? I've got some very strong opinions on where you should start. But then we can also talk about, okay, once you've got that down and under your belt, because we're going to talk about how to put it on autopilot, what do you do next? And we can have that conversation too before this class is over. And I'd be more than happy to make some suggestions. Folks generally find out that after you get started in this business, there's different directions you want to go. Some people gravitate towards rehabbing. You know, when Stephanie Terry went through this class almost 10 years ago, that's where she gravitated towards. Some people gravitate towards commercial. When Steve Streetman went through this class 10 years ago, after a year or two, he started gravitating towards commercial. Same with Stuart Dukeman. Some people gravitate towards this sort of sticking around what I'm going to teach you guys tonight and for the next 17 days. And some people decide that they want to do some, you know, kind of niche-y kind of stuff. Lisa Wood is a classic example of that. So don't just feel like, well, gee, I have to go down a certain path. My strong suggestion is take good notes tonight, go through and watch the video again, and understand, I'm telling you that in my opinion, there's one place you should be starting, but after you got that under your belt, any one of those other 13 as a second strategy is up to you. And why you picked something versus why somebody else picked it, to a large degree, has a lot to do with how you feel about that particular strategy. One of the things about real estate, once you get going, it becomes very, very, very personal. Now, don't try to make it personal now and go, well, Sherman, I'm not going to do what you told me to do because I personally don't think I want to do it. I wouldn't suggest that. But after you go in motion, after you get out there, after you're moving and grooving, it is so much easier to kind of pivot into another one of these strategies. And which one you pick is really going to be kind of a function of what is it you want to do. So again, today we're talking about the 13 core strategies. Any one of them will put 100 grand, 6 figures in your pocket. I'm going to make some strong suggestions about where I think you should start and why I think that's the place to start. And then we're going to roll up our sleeves and work on that. And then we're going to put that on autopilot so you can come back and pick up any one of the other ones. Okay. All right. So next up, again, there's not 101 strategies. There's really sort of 13 core basic strategies. Any one of these strategies can be used for either commercial real estate investing or residential real estate investing. So as we go through this today, you may be going, well, Sherman, are you talking about houses or are you talking about apartment buildings? And my answer is yes, because either one, any of these 13 strategies I'm about to go over can be used in the world of commercial real estate and can be used in the world of residential real estate. And those of you who know my background, and I gave you guys my background on the first day, I came out of the world of commercial real estate. Yes, I got my real estate license when I was a sophomore at Towson University, because they actually offered it as a class back then. Yes, I did spend some time with my mom kind of trying to figure out how to get involved in residential. But the truth of the matter is I got started in commercial real estate because as soon as I graduated from Towson University, I was one of 13 people who was selected from a national competition that I entered. And with that competition, they paid for 2 years of MBA school wherever I picked. And I picked the Wharton School of Business. And so I studied commercial real estate finance as a part of my MBA. And as soon as I graduated, I got picked up by a commercial real estate development company that was part of a Fortune 50 company. It's called Xerox. Many people don't realize that Xerox actually had a real estate arm. And I was selected and hired to work at Xerox Realty, which was a company of about 15 people. We were a wholly owned subsidiary of Xerox Corporation. And I moved up to Stamford, Connecticut. And me and my young wife, we moved to Stamford, Connecticut, and lived in the worst part of town because we had no money, and Stamford was a horribly expensive place. And we went there with the condition that within 6 months, they would move me back to the DC area, which they did. And when they relocated me, they paid my relocation expenses, gave me some money, and I took the money, went out and bought my first house at 27 years old, 2-bedroom townhouse in Old Town Alexandria. God, I wish I still had that now, but that's another story for another day. But in any event, my first gig out of college after graduating from grad school was as the project CFO of a very large scale commercial project. And then I left Xerox. I went to work for the Oliver Carr Company, who was a big time downtown developer. Oliver Carr mentored me along with his son, Tom, who's still a good friend today. And I learned the commercial real estate business. And then, and only then, and after that, did I get into the world of residential. So I'm telling you, most people who you have listened to, most people who you've learned from, the only side of this business that they probably know is residential real estate. I've done both. And I'm telling you, these 13 strategies work very well in either situation, with one notable exception. Commercial takes longer. Like, I'll teach you these 13 techniques. We'll focus on one of these 13 techniques. But when you begin to apply it to commercial real estate, it's going to take you 2 to 3 times as long. One of the folks in our groups put something in the Facebook group, and they said that they'd invested in a course where they were going to teach them how to become an apartment investor. And the deal was, if they actually got a deal done in 4 months, that they would get a full refund of their tuition. And I said to the guy, I mean, I hate being honest, but that's the only way I know how to do this thing. I said, they ripped you off. Because there's no way that you could, I couldn't buy an apartment building, and I know what I'm doing, and I own a couple of apartment buildings, but I couldn't go out and buy an apartment building and get it closed in 4 months. Nobody can. The very act of identifying a property, putting a property under contract, negotiating the terms and conditions with the seller, that in and of itself, once you decide to get going, to go in motion, that's a 2 to 3 month exercise. And then once you put it under contract, there's a period of time called due diligence, where you check to make sure that everything that the current apartment owner tells you is true. And that includes things like sending letters to the tenants and saying, hey, I understand that you're paying $400 a month rent. Is that true? That whole due diligence process is another 3 months. So you're at like 4 months, best case, 6 months, worst case right there. But wait a minute, 70% of the money that you need to buy an apartment building or commercial property is going to come from a lender, from a bank. And they have their process. They have their underwriting process. And that's another 3 to 4 months. And even though some of this stuff can overlap, some of this stuff is not completely overlapping. It's kind of contiguous, one after the other, after the other, after the other. Ain't no way anybody can go out and buy a commercial property or an apartment building as a buy hold strategy in anything less than, seriously, 5-6 months. So I had to tell the guy, I said, listen, if they told you that they'll give you your money back if you buy an apartment in 4 months, they set you up, and they knew they set you up. Out of town gurus, folks, the games they play. So what I'm talking about, these 13 strategies, they can be used for residential, and they can also be used for commercial. So you'll not see commercial as one of the 13 strategies. No, any one of these 13 strategies can also be used in commercial. Big difference is commercial just takes longer, okay? So don't everybody run out and go, gee, I learned all this stuff from Sherman, now I'm gonna apply it to commercial. Why don't you go do 4 greenhouses before you do your first red hotel? You know what I'm saying? There's a reason why in Monopoly, they do houses first. And it generally makes sense to start with houses, only because if you're coming from a place that you know nothing about real estate and you've never owned your own business and everything is new to you, we want to crawl, then walk, then run, and then win gold medals. In fact, that's actually a banner on the wall of the Realinvestors Academy. It's crawl, walk, run, win gold medals. Starting in commercial, if you have 0 real estate experience and have never owned your own business, is generally not a good idea. There are some exceptions to that, but it's generally not good. So any one of these 13 can be used for commercial or residential, but we're going to apply it mainly, especially in this class, to residential. And trust me, if you apply it to residential and you get that down, transitioning into commercial is just so much easier. But if you run out and try to do commercial as your first sort of arena, that's, again, using my aviation analogy, I got to keep coming back to it. That's like saying I want to learn how to fly, and instead of going to the flight simulator and getting in behind a Cessna or glider, you say, I want to learn how to fly, and the first plane I want to learn how to fly is a 767 or 777. And even the most experienced pilots will tell you, you don't start on a 777. First of all, you're 5 to 10 stories up from the ground. That's not a good place to learn how to fly. You want to start with the little Cessna turboprop. So if something goes wrong, you can literally glide that thing into a cornfield and still come out okay. All right. So back to the slides, because Sherman's digressing and we don't need for Sherman to digress. These strategies can be used with either residential or commercial. The strategies can be combined. So once you kind of get the hang of one, you can combine one strategy with another strategy. Next thing you know, okay, instead of 13, maybe now if I do this with this, now I got a couple extra strategies. I got it. I get it. But you're still basically taking two core strategies and putting them at play, okay? And each one of these strategies, you can break it down. It can have different kind of permutations and adaptations. It's no different than anything else. First, learn the rules before you bend the rules. And in order to learn the rules, we want to have at least a passing, then working knowledge of each one of these 13s. Each of these strategies can be broken down into 3 core parts. This, my friends, is important. Please write that down if you want to. If it was me, I'd be writing it down. Each one of these 13 strategies can be broken down into 3 distinct parts. In other words, you don't need to know 100 things for each one of the 13. Each one of the 13 is like, okay, there's 3 things that I got to do. There's 3 things I got to do. There's 3 things I got to do. Each one has 3 core parts, but out of the 3, there's really one that if you miss that, if you don't do that correct, if you screw that up, the whole thing's going to blow up in your face. And as I go through the 13, you'll see that yourself. And I've even made it bold as we go through, so you can say, okay, there's 3 things I got to do, but that one thing, that's got to be done correctly. Otherwise, I'm going to be in trouble. Okay. Most strategies build on prior skills and experience. So towards the end of tonight's session, I'm going to sort of put these things in order and tell you why I believe that they should be pursued in a certain order, because some of these strategies require you have previous skills. I know everybody here knows Terry Humphreys. If you know Terry Humphreys, give me a thumbs up. The tax lien queen. Everybody knows Terry, give me a thumbs up. So Terry came to Realinvestors after she had invested in a guru course on how to do tax liens. And she had no prior real estate experience and had no prior business experience. And this particular guru actually had a pretty good training program. He made himself available after their weekend boot camp, and he was the real deal. And he was all about actually helping mentoring, but he was mentoring from afar, long distance. And Terry kept on saying to the guy, well, what are you talking about when you say the tenant? What are you talking about when you say the deed? And he quickly realized, and she quickly realized, that she had taken his class a little out of sequence because she had no real estate experience. And he gave her the best advice he could possibly give her. Good mentor. He said, go find a local real estate club and learn something about some real estate, because everything I'm teaching you about tax liens will make a whole lot more sense once you understand the fundamentals of real estate. And that's how she wound up coming to Realinvestors. And once she learned the fundamentals of real estate, she's like, oh, now all this stuff that this guy's telling me starts to make sense. Tax liens is a strategy that builds on top of something else. Now I'm getting ahead of myself and I don't want to do that. But my point is, many of these strategies I'm going to go through, you have to have the prereqs. You have to have some prior skills, some prior knowledge of a team already in place to effectively implement that strategy. And that's the number one reason why I'm going to say to you 2 things. Number one, it may not be the best strategy to start with if you have no prior real estate experience, because it's going to require some prior real estate experience. And number 2, if you've already invested in some kind of a training program with some out-of-town guru and you were struggling and frustrated and it just wasn't clicking, chances are they kind of forgot to tell you, oh, and by the way, you really shouldn't be sitting in this class unless you've had the prior class. You don't take Algebra 2 until you had Algebra 1. You don't take calculus until you've had algebra. You don't take advanced chemistry until you take basic chemistry. And you certainly don't take French 2 for any reason whatsoever. Take Spanish. I'm kidding. And now you guys are gonna hate me. No, you don't take advanced language until you take the basic language. That's just common sense. But many of these out-of-town gurus are selling courses and training programs on really kind of advanced real estate techniques that you get in there and you're all frustrated and you don't know why you're frustrated. And the reason why you're frustrated is because they're assuming you have some prior knowledge in the real estate game, but you don't. And that's one of the reasons why I said on day 1, put all that other stuff aside. And I said repeatedly, don't throw it out, just put it aside. Because after we finish this 21 days together, you may very well go back and go, okay, this program I invested in several years ago, now it makes sense. Because Sherman's given me the foundation, he's given me the basic understanding, now I can actually apply it. That's true of many of these strategies that we're going to go through today. All right. All the strategies that we're going to go through require that you have some kind of a team to support you. Some of these strategies, you got to have your team already in place before you even go after them. And I'll identify those too. But every one of these is going to require you have a team. If you're one of those people who's like, I just want to sit around and make money from home on the computer in my underwear and not bother having other people help me out, I'm going to tell you something. There's not much you can do in real estate that doesn't require you to have some kind of a team. So some of the strategies that actually allow you to help build your team if you don't have a team might be a better place to invest your first month, 6 months, or even year as you put a team together, so that then you can go on to the more advanced stuff and have your team in place. That's what I'm saying. But again, as I said at the outset tonight, you only need one strategy to make 100 grand. So if your goal is, hey, I just want to make an extra $100,000 on a part-time basis working from home, any one of these will get you there. So don't be like some investors who feel like, well, gee, I'm going to start here and then I'm going to go here and I'm going to go here. And before the year is over, I'm going to tap all 13 strategies. You know, there's 12 months. If I do 2 in 1 month, no, time out. Don't do that. Don't hurt yourself that way. Start with one. Strongly suggest you start with the one that I recommend. Go to another, pivot to another. And if you kind of like it, keep doing it. And if you like, okay, I spent 4 or 5 months doing it and I figured I've done it well enough to know I don't like it, then move to another. But you only need one to make $100,000 a year income. Most of my real estate investing today, I'm typically deploying on a regular basis 1 or 2 strategies. For the most part, I'm doing buy, hold, and little bit of fix and flip for very strategic reasons. In my younger days in real estate, I felt like I had to do all 13, and I actually wound up doing about 5 or 6. You don't have to do all of them. You don't have to do all of them to make money, but it's good to know what they are. It's good to know how they work. It's good to know what's kind of the prereq and what you need to do. And that's why we're covering this today. So at least you have, like I say, kind of a working knowledge about what we're talking about, and then you can make an intelligent decision as to what you want to do next. Okay. All right. So what are these 13 ways to make 100,000 or more a year part-time while working from home? What are these 13 things? Let's go through them together. And again, if you're ready to take notes, here's a good place to start taking some notes. Number one, and they're kind of not in any particular order, but but they kind of are, and it'll make sense when I finish it up. Number one, investing in others. Investing in others, meaning making loans, being somebody who actually is in the business of making real estate loans to other investors, or investing equity. And, generally speaking, you got to have a little experience under your belt to do either one of them, but they're kind of two different sub strategies within the strategy. Let me explain. Investing in others is like, I'm either going to make you a loan, like a short-term loan, a private investor loan, or maybe I decide to go into the business of loaning people money and become like a hard money lender, right? But investing in others could also be, I'm going to make an equity investment. So, quick example, a few years back, Steve Streetman, who teaches the commercial property class, put together a group of investors. I think it was about 3 or 4 from Realinvestors. And then he also reached out to Abera Okoye, the wealth building CPA, who, by the way, is also one of our former coaching, teaching VIP platinum members. And Abera was able to leverage her network of investors and help Steve to raise well over $1 million. And Steve took the $1 million along with the loan, bought a self-storage facility, fixed up the self-storage facility, and then refied it. In that particular example, Abera was the one who helped organize the money and collect the money and then bring it to Steve and put it into his deal. So that would be an example of investing in and that wasn't a loan that she made, it was equity by collecting money from a number of other players. And we'll get into the details of how to do that a little bit later, but let me just sort of get through this list of 13. Land investment. Land is a very distinct animal. As a general underguiding principle, land is inherently worthless because land has no income. And as a result, if you don't buy it the right way, if you don't manage the process the right way, if you don't do it the right way, land can actually bankrupt you if you do it the wrong way. So how one goes about investing in land and how one does something in land is totally different and distinctly unique versus any of the other 12 strategies. Creating or investing in notes and paper. So what is an example of creating or investing in notes? So a long time ago, and I don't even think he's amongst the living anymore. Terrence, my buddy Terrence and I went to a seminar, a boot camp. All right, so I told you guys I've been to boot camps, but this was probably one of the best boot camps I'd ever been to because Lonnie was very, very hands-on. A guy named Lonnie Scruggs out of Norfolk, Virginia, and he used to teach a strategy on how to buy mobile homes. And his principal technique for investing in mobile homes, and it was just totally enlightening, was he would buy the mobile home and he would then fix up the mobile home, which quite honestly doesn't take a lot of money to fix up, at least the way Lonnie taught us. And then he would sell the mobile home on financing. And at the end of the day, what he was really doing was creating notes. He was creating notes and paper because when you bought that mobile home, you were indebted to Lonnie for 10, 15, 20 years. And if you did not pay on the mortgage for your mobile home, didn't pay on the note, he would repossess your mobile home. And what made mobile homes so unique versus single family houses is that mobile homes, at least in the state of Virginia, are not considered to be real property. They're not considered to be houses, so you don't go through the traditional foreclosure process, which can be somewhat lengthy. They're considered to be vehicles, or as I used to say, chattel. But a mobile home is registered, or used to be. I haven't kept up with it, so I don't know if this is still true today. But when I went through his training program, gosh, almost more than 25 years ago, Lonnie was saying that in the state of Virginia, a mobile home is considered to be a personal property, and you go to DMV to sell a mobile home, even though somebody's living in it. And therefore, because you go to DMV, if somebody misses one payment, not three, one payment, you can repo the mobile home. And because it is a mobile home, you can drive it off the lot and take it someplace else and lock them out. And so very, very lucrative, at least it was for Lonnie. And like I said, his core business was the buying cheap used mobile homes, putting generally about $1,000 into them, and then reselling them on a financing plan where he was making buku bucks by creating the paper, creating the note. Again, we can get more in detail as I go along, but I just want to put that out there. That's a very unique in and of itself. Another example, if I was a real estate agent and I haven't seen too many real estate agents do this lately, but if I was a real estate agent, maybe I wanted to charge a 10% commission and everybody else is charging a 3% commission, but I do something totally unique, something different, maybe commercial real estate, investment property, whatever. I could very well turn to my client and say, hey, listen, you know what? You owe me X for a commission. I'll just be more than happy to take a part of my commission back in the form of a note. So pay me 5%, I'll take the other 5% in the form of a note, and then I create the note, and then I secure the note by putting a lien on the property, which means at any point in time in the future that they want to refi or sell, they got to pay off my lien. And some of you real estate agents are going, Sherman, explain it to me again. Not today. I'm just putting it out there as an example. But yes, I actually have a class that I teach that what I just shared with you in like 30 seconds, that's part of what we teach in the Where to Get the Money class, creating notes and paper. All right, buy, hold. Everybody knows what buy, hold is. Go out and buy a property and hold on to it. We talked about that a couple of days ago about the sort of inherent wealth building feature of holding on to properties long-term because of the 30-year, what kind of mortgage? Type it in the chat box. What kind of mortgage? Starts with an A. What kind of mortgage? Go ahead, type it in the chat box. Let me hear you say it. Go ahead. Amortizing, yes, the 30-year amortizing. So buy, hold is basically buying property using kind of traditional financing and just holding on to it for the long term. Will work very, very well in residential, works even better, trust me on this, in commercial, small apartment buildings, etc. Contract for deed, that might be a term that people may not be too familiar with. Contract for deed, subject to, and lease options. Those are three kind of core nothing down strategies, but each one of them is unique enough that it deserves its own categorization. So a contract for deed is when somebody buys a property from somebody and they agree to basically make payments on installment. And when they make their last payment, then they are given the deed, okay? So that's what a contract for deed is. Subject to, which a lot of people hear a lot of stuff about, is different, although fundamentally it works the same. Subject to is when you buy a property subject to the existing mortgage, meaning somebody sells you their house, but they keep their mortgage in place and you agree to pay their mortgage. But they're giving you the deed to the property. So you own the property day one, they're giving you the deed to the property. And basically when you pay, and you have the deed from the first day, from the get-go. And as you pay down their mortgage, ultimately that property gets paid off. So why would I use contract for deed as opposed to subject to? In some states, like North Carolina, subject to is illegal. And in fact, in all of these strategies, generally, all these strategies I'm going over are legal in all 50 states and US territories, but some are not. As an example, the third one, and I'm gonna skip down a little bit, lease option. Lease option, from what I understand, and I don't live there, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. My understanding is that some types of lease option deals are illegal in Texas. And I'll get to, I'm gonna break each one of these down and explain each one of them in a little more detail. I'll talk why something may be illegal in one state, but it's not illegal in another state, okay? Let's just keep on going. Sale leaseback. Sale leaseback is where you own a property and then you choose to lease, and then you choose to sell it to get a chunk of cash, but then lease it back from the person that you sold it to. And you can be on either side of the transaction. You can own a property, sell it, lease it back, or you could be the person who buys the property from somebody who wants to sell it and lease it back to them, okay? Tax liens and deeds, and I sort of talked about that from the beginning. Terry Humphreys in our group is in fact the tax lien queen. And tax liens is basically this. When somebody owns a property, and it doesn't matter whether it's commercial or residential, they have to pay property taxes. Normally, property taxes are collected by the mortgage company. Hint, hint, little insider tip. Property taxes are oftentimes not collected on commercial properties. Okay, so if you want to do tax liens and you really want to have a big payday, look for commercial properties that may have tax liens. So bottom line is this: you own a property, you're paying a mortgage to the bank, to the lender, whoever loaned you money, but you still have to pay the property taxes to the jurisdiction where the property is located. If you fail, to pay the property taxes, then that jurisdiction has the right to put a lien on your property. But the jurisdiction doesn't want a lien on your property. They want the property tax money. Why? Because the property tax money has to pay for the firefighters, has to pay for the police officers. And in most jurisdictions, somewhere between 40 and 50 cents of every dollar collected goes to pay for the schools. So they want the money to pay the teachers and to pay the firefighters. And they don't want to necessarily have a lien on your property. So what they'll do is they'll put a lien on your property and then turn around and offer that lien to an investor and say to the investor, hey, look, so-and-so owed us $4,000 in property taxes. They didn't pay the property taxes last year, so we put a lien on the property. If you give us $4,000, we'll give the lien to you and give you the right as an investor to foreclose. And I'm pretty sure many of us have seen those late night infomercials where somebody talks about buying properties for pennies on the dollar. If they're talking about buying properties for pennies on the dollar, then for the most part, they're talking about tax liens or tax deeds, all right? So that is, again, a very distinct strategy in and of itself. But any of you who've ever heard Terry Humphrey speak on the topic, you know that it works. She's done very, very well with it over the past couple of years. Lease option, I already talked about. Lease option, the term speaks for itself. It's where you lease a property with an option to buy it. A very popular technique is called a sandwich lease option. I find somebody who has a property and chooses to lease it to me with the option to buy. I then turn around and lease the property to somebody else for a spread. In other words, I pay this person $2,000. I lease it out for $3,000. I make the spread. I give the person who I'm leasing the property from also an option to buy. If they exercise their option to buy from me, I turn around and exercise my option to buy from the original owner. And again, there's typically a spread on the option price. I lease your property for $2,000 a month. You give me the option to buy the property for $300,000. You give me 4 or 5 years to exercise it. I lease it to somebody else. I lease it to them for $3,000, so I make $1,000 spread, and I give them the option to buy the property for $350, $360, $380. So when they do exercise the option, should they exercise the option, I make a $50,000 ka-ching, ka-ching payday. So that's fundamentally in 30 seconds or less what lease option is. Rehabbing, and you can be doing rehabbing to resell, or you can be doing rehabbing to rent, right? We'll talk about that more in a second. Now, foreclosure consultant, that may be a term you've never heard of before. And that's kind of unique to Maryland and about 6 other states. There's Maryland in 1994, 95, and then again in 1998, adopted specific legislation that does not allow for investors to approach homeowners who are in a distressed situation. They have to work through an intermediary called a foreclosure consultant. And so there are several people who have made pretty good incomes by acting as a foreclosure consultant on behalf of somebody who's in a distressed property situation, because oftentimes the lender will pay them a commission if the outcome of acting as a foreclosure consultant is to help them sell the house. The lender will oftentimes pay a 3 or 4% commission to that foreclosure consultant. Oftentimes, foreclosure consultants also pick up an additional skill, which is loan modifications, because sometimes people are like, I know I'm in a foreclosure situation, but I don't want to sell. Can you help me just modify my loan? And again, typically in a loan modification situation, there's opportunity to make a profit. However, typically in a loan mod situation, they're not being paid by the lender, but they're being paid by the homeowner themselves. So foreclosure consultant is kind of unique to a handful of states, Maryland, New Jersey, Illinois, and 3 others, and don't ask me who they are. We actually have a whole training program on that. You're not going to get it as a part of this class because, quite frankly, you don't need it. You will need it when you get into some of these other strategies like contract for deed, lease option, subject to. You're going to need that 12-hour training program we put together on the Maryland foreclosure law, because anytime you're dealing directly with the homeowner, and typically those 3-0, that's why I flagged them, those 3-0 down strategies, you're typically dealing directly with a homeowner. If you're doing any kind of a nothing down, I want to buy your house, and you're doing it mainly targeting people who are in a distressed situation, you need to be aware of the fact that when you're ready to take on those strategies, you need to also add another layer of education, which is understanding the Maryland foreclosure, or what's known as the PIFA, Protection of Homeowners in Foreclosure Act. You need to be aware of how that law works. Sherman, are going to teach that to us in the next 21 days? Oh, no, 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 no. Because none of those 3-0 down strategies can be done in 21 days. And I promise to teach you how to get your first deal done in 21 days or less. I am not going to get bogged down in either lease option, contract for deed, or subject to, because the first thing I got to teach you about is the PIFA law, and then I got to teach you those 3 strategies, and none of those 3 strategies can be done in 21 days or less. It's impossible. It is downright impossible. So I'm going to teach you something that you can actually do in 21 days. And after you got some money in your pocket, ka-ching, ka-ching, if you want to go on and learn those other strategies, then come on back to Real Investors, take another class on that topic, and we'll talk about it then. But I'm just simply saying now that if you do want to pursue any of those 3 strategies, and you are specifically targeting properties that are in Maryland or New Jersey or Illinois or any of the other 3 states I can't remember right now, you also have to be sensitive to the fact that there are anti-investor laws that prevent you from talking directly to the homeowner. And if you violate those laws, and I can't speak to the other 5 states, but if you violate that law in Maryland, you're looking at 3 years jail time. I don't know of any real estate strategy that's worth it. Dorothy says she's pretty sure that Ohio and Oregon are two of the other 3 states. So bottom line is this: we're not going to talk about it in this class. I'm just referencing it so you know kind of like what's out there in the future if you do want to pursue those nothing down. And I'm also making sure that you are very much aware of the fact that in Maryland, there's an additional step you got to go through when you start talking directly to homeowners. Homeowners, not commercial property owners, not apartment owners, because the PIFA law does not pertain and does not apply to commercial real estate. But anytime you're dealing in residential real estate in the state of Maryland, you got one more thing you got to learn, because Maryland's a deep blue state. We'll talk about that in a second. All right. So rehabbing to resell, foreclosure consultant, wholesaling, reverse wholesaling, full service wholesaling. As far as I'm concerned, wholesaling is wholesaling. And these folks are running around the internet talking about, oh, wait a minute, I got a special course on being a full service wholesaler. Oh, wait a minute, I got some new on how to be a full service wholesaler or reverse wholesaler. It's just wholesaling. And I'm gonna teach you how to do that in the next 21 days. So don't rush out and buy anybody's boot camp or home study system or start watching a bunch of YouTube videos on all of these advanced wholesale, because I'm gonna teach them to you if you just hang with me for the next 17 sessions, okay? And then of course, bird dogging. But again, as I said at the outset, some of these strategies require that you have a license. Bird dogging requires you in most states to have a license. And we need to talk about that a little bit, because if you're out there bird dogging in a state that requires you to have a license and you don't have the requisite license, then what you're doing is illegal. And we want to make sure that in none of our real estate dealings, we're doing anything shady, unethical, and by all means, certainly not illegal. Because whatever profits you make, you'll have to give back. And making profits and then having to give them back is not a good day, okay? All right, so moving right along, let's get into some specifics, and I'm gonna break it down for you. If you have questions, feel free to ask those questions in the chat box, okay? So first one of these 13 strategies, and as I said at the beginning, each one of these 13 can be broken down into like 3 specific pieces, like 3 things that got to get done, or excuse me, 3 things that need to be done. But out of the 3, there's one that absolutely positively must get done. And if you mess this up, the whole thing will fall apart, okay? So starting at the top of the list, investing in others, either through making loans or investing equity. And again, this is an example. This is the kind of thing that hard money lenders do. But you can also do this if you've got a little bit of real estate experience under your belt and you have some cash and you feel pretty good that you kind of sort of know what you're doing. Investing in other people's deals is a fantastic way to put yourself in a position to look over somebody's shoulder. So somebody was asking, what does LOS mean? LOS stands for look over shoulder. So as an example, everybody who was in the commercial property class who decided to invest in Steve's self-storage facility learned how to put together self-storage facility deals by looking over Steve's shoulder. We got somebody who's unmuted themselves and they're breathing kind of heavy. Can you please put yourself back on mute? Because I don't think anybody wants to hear you breathing. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Now I know who you are, but I won't say anything. All right, so investing in others. The 3 kind of core things, if I were to sort of break it down, like I want to be a hard money lender, right? And there's a lot of reason why you might want to be a hard money lender. Hard money lenders make a lot of money. Hard money lenders make buku bucks. People who invest in other people's deals, again, great way to put yourself in a position to look over somebody's shoulder. Great way to put yourself in a position to learn something that you've always wanted to learn, but you can't get anybody to teach it to you. And you're like, hey, tell you what, do you ever take on investors? Yes, I do. Well, I got a little extra cash. Can I be an investor in your deal? And part of the deal is I get to look over your shoulder, come to the meetings, be the fly on the wall. I oftentimes have people come to me and say, Sherman, I want to be an investor with you, but I don't want to be passive. I want to come to your meetings. I just finished a deal that I made $100 grand off of. And Earl, I hope Earl doesn't mind. I'm out there, Earl. We're out there, Earl. But Earl Eaton was a private investor on that deal. And Earl came to the closing. Earl met with the contractor. Earl was looking over my shoulder the whole way through, LOS, looking over my shoulder. And the reason why Earl came with me and a bunch of other people didn't is because Earl was one of my private investors. And one of the deals that I make with my private investors is you get to sit in on anything that I'm sitting in on. 99% of the time. Every once in a while, yeah, there's one meeting where it's like the person on the other side doesn't want anybody there. That's kind of like usually like a negotiation with the seller. But even oftentimes that's an opportunity because not every seller's like, I just want to meet with you, you only. I mean, that's kind of rare. And I just kind of introduce this person as, hey, this is my partner, or hey, well, it's true. I mean, if you're putting money in the deal, you are my partner. And everybody's kind of cool. As once I introduce them up front, everybody's kind of cool with it. So using, your retirement money, using money that you may have in a savings account, using money that's kind of just sitting there idle. Not only can you earn a return on the deal, but it's a great way to be able to put yourself in a position to look over somebody's shoulder. Now, here's the key. Three things, and this is particularly true if you're thinking about becoming a hard money lender or something along the lines of being a professional lender. In order to take advantage of this strategy, it's going to require that you have money to invest or loan, right? It's going to require that you have some knowledge about what's going to happen, right? What did Gordon Gekko say in the movie Wall Street? You know, fool and his money is one of they ever got together. I mean, if you put your money into something that you have no clue, and as I oftentimes say, if somebody tells you what they're going to do with your money and you can't explain it to your spouse, you probably don't want to do it. And there's a whole lot of people out there putting money in Bitcoin and other stuff. And I got people coming to me going, hey, Sherman, have you ever thought about investing in such and such? I said, no, explain it to me. I'm like, well, I know this guy who could explain it. No, you explain it to me. Well, I'd rather have this guy. No. If you can't explain it to me, then that means you don't know what's going on. And if you don't know what's going on, why did you put your money into it? And why do you now want me to put my money into it? I'll pass. Investment should have a very simple story. Life is complicated enough. Deals can sometimes become complicated enough. And maybe at some point in time, Earl and I do a little interview, and Earl can sort of share with you sort of the kind of ups and downs he went through with me. And the deal we did was a very simple deal. Didn't have a lot of complications, didn't have a lot of issues, but you know, I put the property out to lease. I also put the property up to sell. That's one of my core philosophies. When I rehab a house and I'm going to sell it, I'll still put in MLS, and I'll still tell my property manager to put it up for rent. Because if the market changes or something goes wrong or something beyond my control happens, I don't want to be standing around for another 30, 60, 90 days trying to now regroup and now try to rent. So the second it looks like the property's done, it's like I put it in the MLS to sell, put it in the MLS to rent, hey, property manager, go put it in the Section 8 program. And whoever brings me the check first, that's what I do. This deal that I just did, and Earl was a private investor with me, was no different. And so Earl was hearing me say on Monday, looks like we got a deal to sell it. I think we're going to make some money off of it. This is what it looks like. And then by Wednesday, oh, the buyer is having some problem with the financing. And the guy and the property manager is telling me that he's got 2 or 3 Section 8 tenants. Maybe we're going to go ahead and rent it. And so he was just kind of watching this back and forth. You know, it's like, it wasn't like a roller coaster ride, but it was sort of like, well, you know, which way is this thing going to wind up? And I'm like, I don't know. Because the buyer is like stumbled, and now they've regrouped, and the Section 8 tenant has put their application in, and it's taken a while. And so finally, at the end of the day, the buyer came through, and they were going to put $100,000 in my pocket, $109,000 in my pocket. I'm like, okay, I'll take your money. I hated that because I really wanted to keep that one as a rental. But Earl had a chance to kind of watch that whole thing unfold because he was my private investor. And that's, you know, what a great way to learn this business by leveraging an asset that, you know, maybe it's earning 5, 6, 7, 8% in the stock market, whatever. That's a good strategy if, in fact, you kind of sort of know what's going to happen, right? There wasn't a lot of explanation here. This was not Bitcoin. This was not oil and gas. It was pretty straightforward. It was a deal right here in our own backyard. He could drive by. In fact, it wasn't too far from where he lives. I think it's like 15, 20 minutes from his house. So he could go by and see what was going on, get a chance to see what the contractor was doing, look over my shoulder, learn and see how I kind of make decisions, right? Very straightforward. You kind of want to make sure whatever investing you're doing, either as a private investor or a hard money lender, you kind of sort of know what's going to happen as it unfolds. You got to have the money to be able to do it. And then the third, probably most important, and this was not requisite, but you know, Earl still had the necessary protections. You got to be able to step in if something goes wrong. So on this particular deal, you know, Earl was going to have a position in it. So if I get hit by a bus, and it's like, oh, Sherman got hit by a bus and he's in a coma, because God help me, I don't want to get hit by a bus and die. But you know, it's God's will. It is what it is. But if I get hit by a bus and like I'm incapacitated and nothing's happening, he still has a secure position because part of the deal was he was going to have the property as collateral. So he has some control when the trustee comes up and goes, gee, we're sorry, Sherman's in a permanent coma and we need to settle his affairs. And I was like, that's fine. You know, I got a lien on the property, just make sure I get paid when you sell the property, right? That's what I mean by control. If you're a hard money lender and you're loaning money to people who quite frankly shouldn't get it, meaning first-time newbie investors, and they're borrowing the money to fix up the property, to rehab the property, You as the hard money lender better be prepared to step in their place and finish the job if they screw it up. And in fact, most hard money lenders, and this is not a class about hard money lenders, although they're an integral part of our team, so we'll talk more and more about them. But the simple fact of the matter is most hard money lenders started off as rehabbers. And the reason why they have money to lend is because they were successful rehabbers and made a lot of money. And the reason why they have no problem loaning money back to new rehabbers is because if the new rehabber screws it up, they have the requisite skills, team in place to step in, take them out, and finish the job. So if you're going to be in this category of investing in others, either through loans or equity, and whether you're a hard money lender or you're just simply looking over somebody's shoulder, these are kind of the three component parts. You say, well, Sherman, what about renting the house? That doesn't matter. What about finding the house? Well, that doesn't matter because if you're loaning money, the house is already found. The borrower's bringing it to you. But these three things right here, it requires you to have some money to invest. You can't be a lender or a hard money private investor or a private investor in somebody's deal if you ain't got no money. So that's kind of the first step. You gotta have the money, right? It requires you to have some knowledge about what's about to take place so that you don't get snookered, don't get bamboozled. And it requires you to have the ability to step in or at least be protected if something goes wrong. All right, any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat box. So somebody says, is there still the earnest money deposit program at REIU where you can sign up to be a lender? Yes, there is. Be more than happy to talk about that to you. Do me a favor, make a note to yourself in your daily tasks to ask Sherman that question next Tuesday, because that will be the perfect time to ask the question on Tuesday. Okay, thank you. Lisa says she met with Equity Trust. Okay, great. Okay, next one up, land development, land investment, land development. And understand this, I got my start in real estate, in commercial real estate, working on a very large tract of land. Land investment, land development is the thing I've been doing longer than anything else. And anybody who's known about Realinvestors for a number of years, because it's been a few years, and knows anything about Bowie and Route 301, probably knows the Nissan dealership on Route 301. That was a land development deal that I did back in 2005, 6, and 7. That was a land development deal. It was a 22-acre land development deal. It was a little farmlet owned by the Mills family, and I basically took that deal through the whole process. So it's got a CVS, it's got a car wash. In fact, I saw Brent the other day, the guy who I sold that parcel to, who built the car wash, and of course the Nissan dealership. And I haven't talked to Phil Morelli in a while. Phil was the general manager. But that whole assemblage there was a land development deal that I did. I've done land development longer than any other part of real estate. So that's the one piece of real estate I can do in my sleep. Here's the deal. Please write this down, because you get this wrong and you're screwed. There's no other way to say it, as impolite as that might sound. Land is inherently worthless. Land is inherently, there is no value in land. And so, well, Sherman, that can't be right because I've seen land. No, land is inherently worth. I can show you some parcels in the desert if you don't believe me. I'd be more than happy, once it's safe to do so, to buy a $97 ticket to Las Vegas on Southwest Airlines and rent a car and take you 15, 20 minutes outside of the Vegas Strip and show you all the land you could ever possibly want. It's worthless today. It'll be worthless tomorrow. It'll be worthless probably 100 years from now, parts of it. And you know what? We don't even have to do that. I can take you to Baltimore. Land itself is inherently worthless. What gives land value is what you're able to do with it. So if you're going to hold land or you're going to buy land, you kind of want to know as you go into the deal, how you're going to get out of the deal. That's what's known as an exit strategy. We'll talk more about exit strategies in the coming 17 days. But land itself is inherently worthless. Therefore, the single most important, and that's why it's bold, the single most important thing about land is you got to know how to buy it right. And you don't buy land with a border realtor contract, and you don't buy land borrowing money from a hard money lender. That's a great way to go bankrupt quickly. There's a certain technique and a certain strategy to buying land. Sherman, are you going to teach it to us in the next 21 days? Hell no, because you can't buy land in 21 days. And we're not going to talk about land other than the 2 minutes I give it tonight. Land is a somewhat complicated process in terms of buying it. And it's also somewhat complicated in terms of financing it. And it just takes time. I wouldn't advocate that anybody buy a piece of land without doing the requisite due diligence. And that requisite due diligence is 90 to 120 days. If it's a piece of land that requires you to do what's called a PERC, P-E-R-C test, because it doesn't have public water, public sewer, you're gonna have to do septic tanks and septic fields. There's only certain times of the year you can even do PERC tests. I believe it's March. And even that's a fairly narrow window. So if you miss that narrow window, you're waiting until next year to even do a PERC test. And you got to do a PERC test as a part of your due diligence. So there's no way to get into a land deal in 21 days. So we're not going to talk about land during the next 17 days. But I'm telling you just enough to know that if you come across a piece of land, or after you kind of get what we need to get down over the next 21 days, you want to do land, land has its own unique, distinct way of doing business, because land itself is inherently worthless. That's why that particular one is bolded. That one you never want to forget. You mess that up, you're toast, right? But in addition to which, land investment, land development requires some specific skills or partners who possess those skills. So you can partner, like maybe your family owns a piece of land and you want to help develop that piece of land. You want to bring somebody in who's got skills in land development, okay? And it's usually best done when you have the skills in other areas of real estate investing that you can apply. So example, let's say maybe you want to do, maybe your family owns a piece of land and you're like, gee, this would be a perfect place to do a apartment building. Well, you really want to have apartment skills, maybe not building apartments from the ground up, but at least have some skills in understanding how apartments work before you rush into buying a piece of land or rush into advising your family on what to do with the land. So those are kind of the three component parts, but of the three, the single most important is making sure you buy it right. Because if you buy it wrong, you're dead in the water before you even know it, all right? Somebody says, what about putting a mobile home park on it? So Nikki, I told you we're not gonna talk about land, but because you're Nikki, I'm gonna just give you one little hint. One of the things about doing land development deals is you gotta know what the zoning is. And for the most part, when I teach people land as part of the advanced commercial class, I talk about doing deals that have what's called quote unquote by right zoning, meaning you can do certain things by right without having to go through a formal public hearing process, because formal public hearing processes become very expensive. So if a piece of land has the ability to put a mobile home park on it, or it already has an existing mobile home park, that, my friends, is a home run. That's gold. Because most jurisdictions don't like mobile home parks, and most jurisdictions have zoning that specifically prohibits doing mobile home parks. But if you have something that has a pre-existing mobile home park, kind of like what's down there sort of in the shadows of Andrews Air Force Base off of Route 4, that's a home run, because most parcels have already been rezoned to eliminate the ability to do mobile home parks. But one of the things that I teach when I teach the land development course is understanding how zoning works, understanding how special use permits work, what's known as SUPs, and also understanding what the process is for getting a piece of land rezoned. Oh, by the way, did I mention to you guys I used to be on the zoning commission for the city of Alexandria? And before that, I was on the board of zoning appeals for the city of Alexandria. I was the chairman of the board. I was the vice chairman of the board. I was the chairman of the board of zoning appeals, and I was the vice chairman of the zoning commission. So I kind of know a thing or two about zoning, and I built a significant amount of commercial real estate around the King Street Metro, which required us to go through the whole approval process. So when we get to the land class, I'll tell you everything I know, promise. But this class, this is about getting your first deal done. Just take me at my word. Land is kind of like towards the end of your journey, not at the beginning of your journey. But everything I'm saying to you guys, all these 13 days, there's exceptions. If your family has a piece of land and they're ready to dispose of it or think about developing it, that's an exception. And that could be the perfect catalyst for learning the land business by, bringing somebody like me in or somebody else and say, okay, Sherman, I'm going to introduce you to my family. We got 20 acres. One thing, if they decide to work with you, I want to look over your shoulder and learn how the land development business works. Happy to do so. But for somebody who's just getting started in real estate and you want to get out there and start making some money and you don't have that particular situation, you kind of want to leave land alone for a little bit, unless, of course, as a part of your getting out there doing the real estate business, you come across some land parcels and then we can talk about how we actually go about doing the land business. But land is its own unique animal. And please type it in the chat box real quick. What's the single most important thing we need to know about land? Type it in the chat box. Type it in. Let me see. Type it in. What's the single most important thing we need to know about land? What is it? Hint, hint. Thank you. It's inherently worthless. That's right. The value of the land comes from what you can do with it. So don't be rushing out there, borrowing money from a hard money lender, taking your life savings and plopping it down on a piece of land only to find out you're going to lose every penny of it. It's inherently worthless. You got to understand what you can do with it. And the only way you can understand what you can do with it is to go through a process of due diligence, which includes checking on the zoning and understanding where the marketplace is and understanding what can actually get built there. Okay. All right, let's keep on moving, not get bogged down in any one of these things. Next, creating or investing in notes and paper. And I've already kind of talked about this, so I won't spend too much time. In order to be able to create notes and paper or invest in notes and paper, it kind of requires you have money if you're going to be on the investor side, or skills in actually creating notes and mortgages. And I already talked about Lonnie Scruggs and what I learned from Lonnie Scruggs. We went down and he showed us how to create notes by buying used mobile homes. So he'd buy used mobile homes for about $3,000 or $4,000. Because I mean, think about it. What's a used mobile home worth? Now, of course, I'm talking 25 years ago, so you can inflate up. But he bought used mobile homes for, let's call it in today's dollars, $5,000. He'd put $1,000 to $2,000 in today's dollars in fixing it up, and then he'd turn around and sell that sucker for 20, 30 grand on a note. Real out-of-pocket cost, $7,000, selling it for $30,000. Create a note for $30,000 and have the person pay on payments. And he wasn't doing amortizing mortgages, by the way. He was doing interest only. Anybody got a calculator? You can do this one on the back of a napkin. What is 1% of 30,000? Anybody? What's 1% of 30,000? 1%, 1%. That's $300 a month. Now think about this for a second. Lonnie has bought the mobile home for, let's call it $5,000. He's put $1,000 into it. He sold it for $30,000, and he's charging he's created a note that requires the buyer to pay him 1% a month. By the way, what is 1% a month on an annual basis? 12%. So if he's collecting $300 a month, at the end of 1 year, he will have collected how much? $3,600. At the end of 2 years, he would have collected how much? $7,200. Didn't he just get all his money back in 2 years? Didn't he just get all of his money, like everything he put into his mobile home, he gets it all back in 2 years? But he's still collecting $300 a month. Why is he still collecting $300 a month? Because he created the note. He created the paper. And then the paper says, okay, you got 10 years to pay this off, but it's interest only. So what happens in 10 years? The owner of the mobile home has to come up with $30,000. They go out and they get an appraisal, go, hey, can I get a $30,000 loan on my mobile home? Appraiser comes in and says, your mobile home ain't worth more than $20,000. What do? They say, hey, Lonnie, looks like my mobile home went down in value. Can you just extend the loan? How much money would this guy have made at the end of 10, 15? And that was a strategy. Creating notes to sell the mobile homes. And predominantly selling mobile homes to people like, I mean, I don't mean to be harsh or rude. I just kind of want to be just sort of matter of fact. On a socioeconomic scale, generally speaking, what kind of person is buying and living in a mobile home? And stop and think about what kind of person is buying, living in a mobile home and buying it from somebody like Lonnie, who does no credit check whatsoever, right? And finances the deal. Probably somebody with the 400, maybe 500 FICO score. Now, see, some of y'all being mean. Take that back, Joe. Take that back, all right? But somebody who's probably, you know, on a socioeconomic scale, somebody who's like maybe one level above, you know, lifetime renter, maybe less than, I mean, but they're not in a position to go out and buy a $500,000 house. So what happens when they turn to the bank to try to get a loan to pay off the mobile home loan that Lonnie made. They're not going to get it. And he knows that. So he kind of has them locked in perpetuity, paying them $300. Y'all begin to see the power of creating notes. They're not gonna just pay him $300 for 10 years. They're gonna pay him $300 for the rest of their life. Because they're never gonna be able to get, quite frankly, they're never gonna be able to get the loan necessary to pay him off, to pay off the principal. So $300 a month, that's $3,600 a year. That's how much over 10 years? 36,000? Not bad for roughly 6-7 grand out of his pocket. Y'all see the power of that? That's why people do notes. Now, and again, I gave another example, like a real estate agent who, like, you know, charges a commission, and they charge above average commission, but they take some cash, take some in the form of a note. Now, in that case example I gave you, they're not actually charging somebody on a monthly basis, but they're putting a lien, a legal, legitimate lien on somebody's property, which means that when they refi or sell, that lien's gonna get paid off. That's another example. So other requirements of notes: requires you to have money to invest or skills to create the note, requires some knowledge of what the borrower is doing and their ability to make payments. So again, it doesn't do you any good to create a note and then somebody goes into default the next day, because you still got to foreclose, and foreclosing is never a good thing. Or in the case of mobile homes, repossessing is never a good thing. You want the person to be able to pay, right? And you don't have to renegotiate the terms of the note every 6 months because they don't have the ability to pay, right? But it also requires that you have a working knowledge of the legal agreements that you're using to protect the investment. And I should say, to protect yourself and the investment. What do I mean by that? Well, if you are selling a car or a mobile home and you are creating a note, you have to be careful, because you have now created a consumer loan and a consumer product. And you got to be careful that you don't violate usury laws, meaning that you are charging an above market rate interest that goes above and beyond what the jurisdiction allows you to do. So somebody says, get legal shield. No, that is not a legal shield deal. That's somebody who really knows their stuff. All due deference to legal shield. There's a reason for legal shield, and there's a reason why. Look, you guys have heard me say it. You're going to hear me say it over and over again. I got 4 lawyers on speed dial. Legal shield is only one of them. When I'm ready to do a development stuff, I want my development lawyer in. When I'm ready to do a contract stuff, I want my contracts lawyer in. So you want to make sure you're using the right kind of team member for the right kind of, like, if I go see my doctor and it's just for a checkup, I'm using my checkup doctor. But if I wind up having chest pains, go to the emergency room, and the doctor says you really need to have that thing checked out because you had a pulmonary embolism, I'm not going to my regular doctor. I'm going to the doctor who specializes in pulmonary embolisms. Got it? Right professional for the right part of the job, and not all lawyers are created equal. I got one lawyer that all they do is specialize in doing my syndications, my money raising stuff. But guys, that's not what this class is about. That's why we have the Where to Get the Money class. My point in all of this is to simply say, if you're going to do this strategy and you're going to do it right, you got to make sure you got the right legal documents and you know how to use those right legal documents, because the legal documents is what protects you and protects the investment. So you got to make sure that you're doing that correctly. All right. Next up, buy, hold. Let's go in a little more detail on buy, hold. Buying income producing property, and again, it doesn't matter what we're talking about, single family houses or commercial property, there are 3 core skills, 3 things that need to get done. One is more important than the rest. What are the 3? When you're talking about buying and holding income producing rental property, it doesn't matter whether it's single family or it's commercial, the first step in the process is you need to have a knowledge of either how to manage the tenants yourself and or how to hire the right property manager, because when you buy whole property, everything hinges on making sure that the tenant doesn't destroy the place. And trust me, tenants know how to destroy a place. Doesn't matter whether you're in DC, Baltimore, or Bowie, Maryland. Tenants understand how to become a thorn in your side if they want to be. And you got to have the right tools, the right techniques, and the right management up front, to make sure that doesn't happen. As one person once said, how do you wind up making a lot of money? You make good decisions. And how do you make good decisions? You make bad decisions. You're going to have your kind of what I call your what's the word I like to use? You're going to have sort of your guinea pig property, or your what do they call it at McDonald's? Your test kitchen property. But if you're going to be any good whatsoever at buying and holding properties, you probably want to self-manage one, because by the time you self-manage one, you'll definitely have gotten to the point of pulling your hair out going, I'll never do this again. Real quick side story, and I'm also trying to be sensitive and conscious of the time, make sure we don't go too long today. But my very first investment property was a rental property. I bought my very first property pre 9/11. And so 9/11 was the event that changed everything in my life. That's what caused me to wind up being a wholesaler and then a power wholesaler and then a rehabber. But my very first investment deal was a buy hold. And I bought the wrong kind of property in sort of the wrong kind of neighborhood, although the neighborhood got better. I never forget, it was a beautiful spring day after I'd held the property for about 2 years, and the tenant had, basically trashed the whole place and left. And I was standing there shampooing the carpets, getting ready to put the property back on the market because I was self-managing. I didn't have a property manager at the time. And all of my family is out having a good time on this beautiful spring day, like the first really nice spring day. It was like March or something, probably around 2003, 2004, something like that, 2003. And you guys know you don't shampoo carpet wearing shoes. So I had gone to the local Home Depot, got myself a steam cleaner, and I'm standing there in my sock feet shampooing the carpet, and the carpet's really badly soiled. I don't think she had a dog, but I couldn't tell. But she definitely had a couple little kids, and there was like crayon in the carpet, and it was a brand new carpet 2 years before, but it was just totally beat up. And like she never owned a vacuum cleaner, never ran a vacuum cleaner, so it's got like 2 years with a gunk on it. And I'm standing there shampooing the carpet because I'm self-managing. And about 15, 20 minutes into it, I feel this tingly sensation in my toes, and I suddenly realize that as good a job as I think I'm doing, there's still a lot of gunk that I'm now liquefying, and it's now getting into my toes because I'm standing there sock-footed, because that's how you shampoo carpet, in your socks. And I remember saying to myself, I will never, ever put myself in this position again. Now, am I grateful because I did manage that property and learned every facet, including evicting tenants and repairing stuff? Yeah. I wouldn't trade that experience for the world, but by the time 2 years had gone by and that experience, I will never buy a property where I can't have enough money coming in that I can hire a professional manager, because I will never find myself in that position again. And as my portfolio has grown and included single family houses and apartment buildings and commercial property, I don't clean toilets. I don't shampoo carpets. I don't put tenants in, and I don't evict tenants. That's all the responsibility of my property manager. But because I did it, I understand how to hire a property manager, and I understand when a property manager is bamboozling you. So one of the things about getting into the buy hold game is you've got to be prepared to manage properties yourself in the first instance, and then learn some lessons from that you can then apply to hiring the right property manager, because everything hinges on your ability to keep that tenant in check. In addition to which, you need to have some knowledge, or should have some knowledge, on not only how to manage the contractor, not only manage the property manager, but also manage the contractor, because there's not going to be a single property you own that's not going to need some kind of fix up. You can buy the most pristine property in the world, but sooner or later something's going to break, and you got to send a contractor in there. And as the saying goes, you make your money when you buy, and you lose your money when the contractor shows up. So I would generally recommend to people who are thinking about buy hold that before you jump into the buy hold game, at least go through one rehab. And then once you do a property that you're going to buy hold, at least manage one property yourself before you get out there and hire a professional property manager. But again, you're not going to do this in 21 days. So we're not even going to spend any more time talking about buy hold, but you will be working with people who do want to buy hold, and eventually you want to buy hold, and understanding the sort of building blocks of how this works is kind of important to having success in this game. And then finally, it requires a working knowledge of the legal agreements, because again, it's the legal agreements that protect your investment, like the leases All right, the leases that you use that's the number one tool. You hold something over the head of your tenant by having a really ironclad lease and understanding what's in it and what should be in it and what shouldn't be in it and what you're allowed to have in it. And if you have to enforce the lease, making sure you understand what you're doing before you run down to the courthouse. Okay. All right. Next up, contract for deed. And I'm gonna pick up the speed a little bit because I don't want to get us into another 2-hour lecture because I don't think that's fair to you, and I don't want to go that long tonight. Contract for deed, I already talked about. It's one of the 3 core nothing down strategies. What does it require? It requires working knowledge of how to do phase 2 marketing, because for the most part, any of the nothing down strategies, you're probably going to be dealing directly with homeowners. And you're probably going to be dealing with homeowners who are either in a distressed situation because they're not able to make their mortgage payment, or a homeowner who attempted to sell a house through a real estate agent and it just didn't sell, or a homeowner who inherited a property and they're kind of going on the cheap. Or maybe you found them through your marketing efforts, but for the most part, you got to have some skill sets in negotiating deals directly with homeowners. Most brand new investors don't possess those skill sets. So somewhere along the way, you're going to need to start to develop those skill sets, because these nothing down strategies generally are not found with a real estate agent in a real estate go-between. You find these generally by doing some kind of direct marketing, what we generally call phase 2, and you'll hear me using that term phase 2 more and more and more as we get into the next week and the following week. But phase 2 marketing, also known as direct marketing, also known as FSBO marketing. And again, we're not doing any kind of direct marketing. We're not going to do direct marketing over the next 17 days. We don't have time for that to work. This is all about speed. This is all about you getting your first deal done in 21 days or less. So we're going to leave this alone. But I do want to make sure at least I mention it, so that as you finish getting your first couple of deals done and you want to pivot into something else, maybe you want to pivot into some of these nothing down strategies. But nothing down strategies doesn't mean speed. Understand this. When you're talking about nothing down, it means you negotiating with the homeowner. It means you coming up with creative solutions. It means you putting all the pieces in place. Nowhere in there did I say anything about speed or getting it done in 21 days. It can't happen. Not as a first deal, not as a new investor. As you get more experience under your belt, yes, possibly, yes, maybe. But first deal, forget about it. So requires some working knowledge of how to do direct marketing, phase 2 marketing, FSBO marketing. Requires knowledge of how to find opportunities and special situations, because not every deal lends itself to one of these nothing down strategies. And certainly not every deal lends itself to a contract for deed situation. It's the rarity that makes it happen. And of course, requires a working knowledge of the legal agreements. Like, you need a legal agreement. You need a contract for deed document. You need a title company who's willing to act as an intermediary, because again, contract for deed is you're paying, you agree, you get into an agreement with somebody to sell their house, and you are contracting to buy the house, and you're making payments over terms, over time, and then when the last payment is made, the deed comes to you. Well, what happens if you have a 10-year situation or a 15-year situation, and by the time you made the last payment, you can't find the homeowner who sold you the house? How do you deal with that? Now, you made 15 years worth of payments, and now you're ready for the deed, and they're nowhere to be found. You take care of that up front by having the right agreements and having the right third-party go-betweens, because that homeowner is not going to give you the deed up front, because if they're going to give you the deed up front, you wouldn't be doing a contract for deed in the first place. The whole notion of contract for deed is I make payments, and then when I made the final payment, you give me the deed. So having somebody like a title company to act as a third-party intermediary, where the deed goes to them in escrow, and it's already there waiting for you, so that when you make that final payment, the deed just go ahead and gets recorded, is how you do it. Now, do title companies go out of business? Yes. So what happens if the title company goes out of business while you're making the payments? What do you do next? Don't have the title company hold the deed. Wait a minute, sir, you just said, no. I said, that's one solution. But I have seen situations where investors have made payments, but the title company went out of business and they couldn't find the deed. Better to have that deed pre-recorded. You have a copy, they have a copy, blah, 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 blah. But again, this class is not about contract for deed. So therefore, I'm not going to go too much detail. We have a class for that. The Where to Get the Money class talks about all these creative financing techniques, including contract for deed and subject to, which is the next topic that I want to talk about. Contract for deed and subject to are very, very, very similar, and therefore have kind of the same 3 things that you need to do. The mechanics of which are a little bit different. The legality of which is a little bit different. Subject to is when you buy a property and you get the deed up front and the homeowner is agreeing to keep their underlying mortgage in place and you're paying their mortgage off for them. Okay, that's what that's what subject to is. Contract for deed is where you're agreeing to make payments to the homeowner, and the homeowner themselves will make the payments to the mortgage if there is one, and then you get the deed after you have made your last payment. Okay, but fundamentally they kind of work the same way, but legally they're slightly different. And there's one state I know of, there could be more, but there's one I know of, which is the state of North Carolina, where subject to is illegal. So you say, well, why, Sherman, is it illegal in North Carolina, but it's not illegal anyplace else that you know of? Simple. If subject to deals take place in large numbers, there's one particular party who is damaged, who's hurt, who loses out. And stop and think about it. If Diane agrees to sell me her house subject to, and it works for Diane and it works for me, why should anybody else care? Well, 99.9% of all loans have something called a due on sale clause. And the due on sale clause says that if Diane sells her house, whatever outstanding mortgage there is comes fully due. And you're like, well, okay, why should that be enforceable? Because in the world of real estate, he who holds the gold makes the rules. And when Diane bought the house and she got money from Bank of America said, I'll give you the money, but if you ever sell the house, you owe me all the money. Hence, due on sale clause. Diane decides to sell the house to me and keep that mortgage in place and let me make her payments, and everything's cool with her. It's cool with me. But you know what's not cool with? Bank of America. Like, no. We want Diane to pay off the mortgage. And if Sherman wants to buy the house and get a mortgage from us, he has to reapply, pay the points. You got to pay the points so we can turn a profit. And so if you have a whole lot of subject to deals going down, the banks kind of lose a chance to make some more profit. Well, where are 2/3 of the banks of America located? North Carolina. One particular city, Charlotte, North Carolina. And because there's a large concentration of banks in North Carolina, they had the power to get the North Carolina legislature to pass a law that says subject to in any shape or form is illegal in North Carolina. And it is. That's why. Okay. But otherwise, generally speaking, as long as you're not committing fraud when you do sub to, it can be done just about anywhere. Again, this class is not about sub to. You're not going to get a sub to lecture from me. I'm already starting to see people put questions in the question box about how to do subject to. I'm not talking about subject to for the next 17 days. We got a different class for that. That is the where to get the money class, where we talk about that section on creative financing. That is not this class. This class is about getting your first deal done, in 21 days or less. So why do I even bother talking about it? Because it's a strategy you've heard of. It's a strategy you may be interested in. You may have already gone to a boot camp and had somebody talking about it. And I'm just simply saying, put that aside for now. Let's focus on getting your first deal done as quickly as possible. But then once you learn how to get the first deal done, start making some money, if you want to circle back and go to subject to or contract for deed or lease option, those three sort of core nothing down strategies, by all means, go do so. But contract for deed, subject to, and lease options cannot be done in 21 days or less. Can't do it as a new investor. You got to have an infrastructure. You got to have a team. You need to understand how the documents work. You need to know what the laws are and the legality of it is, so that you don't wind up defrauding a bank. You never want to defraud a bank. You never want to. I know there are people out there teaching courses on subject to, where they say, okay, have the homeowner create a trust and use the trust as a way to confuse or camouflage the fact that the property got sold so you can avoid the due on sale clause. Stupid, stupid, stupid. If the homeowner does something that is illegal, intentionally so, and defrauds the bank, and the reason why they did it is because you told them to do it, and the reason why you told them to do it is because you learned about it in some 3-day boot camp, and in the process, the homeowner committed fraud, you told the homeowner to commit fraud, and you want to go before a judge, and the judge says to the homeowner, who told you to do this? And they go, she did. And you're standing in the courtroom, and the homeowner says, why did you tell the homeowner to do this? Because I learned it in a boot camp. I'm sorry, I was ignorant of the fact that what I was doing was illegal. You know what the judge's going to say to you? Type it in the chat box. What's the judge going to say to you when you tell the judge you were ignorant of the fact that what you were doing was illegal and instructing somebody else to do something that's illegal? What's the judge going to say? Go ahead, let me see it. Yeah, there you go. Mark got it. Too bad, so sad. You're still paying the fine. You're still going to jail, whatever, whatever. Ignorance is no excuse in the eyes of the law. We know that. Thank you, Carl. Ignorance is no excuse. Just because you went to some boot camp and were taught some technique that you then turned around and taught somebody else and it later on turned out to be illegal and you didn't know it, doesn't matter. You should have known. Somebody else put it in there. You should have. Why? Why should I have known? Because you went out and printed up a whole bunch of business cards that said you were a real estate investor. The only reason why that investor called you is because you put some ad in the paper that said you were a real estate investor. You put yourself out there as a quote unquote professional real estate investor, and then you told somebody to break the law because you didn't know any better. That dog don't hunt, folks. If you're going to do these kinds of nothing down strategies, you need to know what you're doing, and you need to spend a little time and invest a little time with the right kind of instructor who can teach you and walk you through how to do it. And if you're going to do this stuff in Maryland, with Maryland homeowners, you darn sure better know the PIFA law. Those two things combined together, you ain't going to do that in 21 days. So do not ask me to spend the next 17 days explaining how to do sub-2 contract for deed, the lease option, so you can go out and do that as your first deal. It ain't going to happen in the next 17 days. Got it? But I do want you to understand it. I do want you to understand that it is a solid technique. Just make sure you're not breaking the law when you do it. Okay? All right, so sub-2, move on to the next one. Sale leaseback. Sale leaseback, which is different than lease option. Sale leaseback is where somebody already owns a building and they decide they need the cash, so they will sell the building to somebody and then lease it back for them because they still want to use the building, but they need the cash. Traditionally kind of a commercial technique, but individuals can do this too. You can have people, as an example, just quick, this is off the top of my head, it's kind of hypothetical, but I kind of sort of remember something like this happening years ago. Let's say that somebody has a property in Bowie, Maryland, and they're splitting their time between Bowie, Maryland and Florida. And they have a property and they kind of like to have some cash because they want to get a little bit bigger place down in Florida, and they don't quite have enough, and maybe their credit score is a little whack, so they can't refi. And you hold yourself out as an investor and say, hey, I'll be willing to buy the property, do a sale leaseback. So you come up with the money, you buy the property, they lease it back from you with the understanding that they need to continue to lease the property for maybe 2-3 years. And then when they're done, they're gone, property's yours. And a sale leaseback transaction might be better than some other strategy, because then you have a clear-cut sale, and now all of a sudden the owner of the property is no longer the owner of the property, rather they're a tenant in the property. And laws related to evicting tenants are very different than laws related to repossessing or foreclosing. In most cases, evicting a tenant is easier than a foreclosure. That's of course not counting on COVID restrictions that say you can't evict tenants who are not paying during COVID times. Those are extraordinary times with extraordinary overlay rules and regulations. But in most cases, if I have a property and I got somebody who wants to occupy the property, I'm probably better off converting their status to tenant than having their status as owner borrower, because the laws pertaining to, again, it's case by case, jurisdiction by jurisdiction. But again, a sale leaseback is typically done in a commercial transaction where somebody wants to sell a building to free up some cash, but they still need the use of the building for some period of time. I've seen large corporations, not even necessarily large, but just corporations in general, that maybe they're in a warehouse facility and they're building a new warehouse facility. And they want to sell the building they're in to free up some cash, but they still need the use of it while their new building's being built. And so they need like a 2-year lease while the new building's being built, right? There can be similar situations in the residential world where somebody is ready to buy a new house or move to a new house, and they still need use of the existing house. So they agree to sell it to you now in exchange for getting a chunk of cash. And then they still want some kind of a lease back option for some period of time, all right? So again, it's not the nature of this particular class to go into detail how that works. I just wanted to just share it with you again as one of the 13 ways to make some money in this business. There are literally people who just specialize in doing sale leasebacks, mainly providing the financing and the purchase of property through sale leasebacks. Requires ownership of the property be sold or leased, or relationship with the property owner. You have to have the ability to attract a proper kind of purchaser for the property if it is sort of a sale leaseback, and it requires a working knowledge of the, again, legal documents used to protect the investors and or your position in the deal. Next one up is tax liens and deeds. I've already really sort of talked about it. We have a resident expert on this topic, Terry Humphreys, but fundamentally tax liens are where, again, the jurisdiction needs money and the person who owns a property has not paid their property taxes. So the jurisdiction, the city, the county, the township, usually states don't collect property taxes. Usually that's left to the township or the city or the county. And usually the taxes, property taxes are collected to pay for things like schools, parks, rec, firefighters, police officers. And of course the politicians' elected official salaries. But bottom line is this: if the person's not paying their property taxes, then the jurisdiction will slap a lien on the property and then sell that lien to an investor. And if the person who owns the property comes back and pays it, they pay the property taxes along with the penalty, then the lien comes off. And typically the money and the penalty goes to the investor. So it's a really good way to, it's a really good technique, quite frankly, for investing if you have like retirement money, because you can oftentimes get well above sort of stock market average returns. The stock market on average returns, were you talking about individual stocks, or are you talking about mutual funds, et cetera, on average about 8 to 10% a year. It's not uncommon for people to get 12, 15, 20% rates of return from these tax liens. So even if you don't get the property, having somebody pay you the penalty, or again, they'll pay it to the city or the township or the county, and then the county will pay it to you. It's not uncommon to get double-digit returns when they pay those penalties, even if you never got the property. So you get your money back plus the penalty that the county charged or the city charged or the township charged. But the best thing is when you can wind up actually owning a property, and it's kind of sad, but a lot of people don't realize that when they pay their mortgage, it's the mortgage company, it's Bank of America, it's Chase, et cetera, that's collecting not only your monthly mortgage payment, but also a portion for your taxes. And many times, especially the elderly, they'll pay off the loan for the property, and then they won't pay their property taxes because they're like, I paid my property taxes, not realizing that the lender was collecting. And when the lender stopped collecting for the mortgage, then they're also no longer collecting for your property taxes, and you got to pay the property taxes on your own. And there has been many a situation where an elderly person didn't realize that they were supposed to be paying the property taxes, and they fell 2-3 years behind, and they wind up losing a $300,000 house because they didn't pay $8,000 in property taxes. And an investor comes along and pays the jurisdiction that $8,000, and the homeowner misses their right of redemption. Usually there's a redemption period. They miss that right of redemption. And next thing you know, that investor wound up buying a $300,000-$400,000 house for $8,000. And that really is pennies on the dollar. It's rare, but it does happen. So again, can you get it done in 21 days? No. So we're not going to be talking about it over the next 17 days. But again, my job tonight is just sort of walk you through these sort of fundamental core strategies that people use. So you know what's out there after you get your first deal done and you want to swing back and do something else. Next one up, lease option. Again, lease option is one of those nothing down strategies. The name speaks for itself. You lease a property with the option to buy. Great place for investors to find lease options, quite frankly, is in the MLS. Oftentimes when somebody puts a house up for sale and it just doesn't sell for whatever reason, an investor can come along and say, hey, show me your expired listings, or get access to expired listings, and offer that homeowner the solution of leasing the property. And oftentimes a homeowner would just take enough to cover the mortgage, and then give the investor will ask for and get an option to buy the house in the future at some stated price. And quite frankly, the number one reason why houses tend to not sell when they're listed with an agent is either A, because the homeowner was refusing to fix it up, and therefore it just had too many things wrong with it, or B, they're asking for too much money. Well, somebody who asks for $350,000 today in a neighborhood of houses that are selling for $325,000, that house is not going to sell no matter what. But 3, 4, 5 years from now, that house could actually be worth $350,000 or more. And so a typical lease option scenario is, hey, I'll pay you enough to cover your mortgage, and I'll pay you the asking price that you're asking, but I want 5 years to be able to pay you the amount of money. So it's a lease for 5 years with the option to buy at your price. Well, 5 years from now, that 350, which sounded ridiculous today, could actually be right in line or even lower than what houses are selling for in that neighborhood at that point in time. But the homeowner's happy because A, they're no longer paying their mortgage, and B, they got the sales price. And you're happy because you got 5 years to pay it. And in the meantime, you go find somebody, again, it's a classic sandwich lease option. You go find somebody who, for whatever reason, can't qualify to get a mortgage, but that doesn't mean they can't make the monthly payment. And you say, hey, look, I got a house. I'm gonna charge you $500 more, $1,000 more than sort of the going rate, but I'll give you the option to buy the house. And for the person who really, really, really wants to have home ownership, but they're not in a position to have home ownership, they'll pay you more money than they would pay you on a regular lease, especially if you're willing to apply that extra amount of money towards the purchase price. And then you turn around and like your strike price, your option price is $350. You ask that person for the option price at $380 or $390. And they're like, well, houses in the neighborhood are only selling for $325. Yeah, but 5 years from now, when you exercise your option, they'll be worth $360, $370. Well, why are you making me pay $380, $390? Because I gave you the benefit and I gave you the opportunity to buy the house when Bank of America didn't. And maybe they'll negotiate with you a little bit, and maybe they won't. And you collect the spread over what you're paying the homeowner on a monthly basis, and you also collect the spread when the time comes to exercise the lease option. And oh, by the way, if the tenant buyer never exercises the lease option, you just get another tenant buyer in there. And if necessary, ask for an extension from the homeowner. That is a classic lease option. It is a wonderful nothing down technique, and you can't get that done in 21 days. So that's all we're going to talk about, all right? Because this is about how you get your first deal done in the next 17 days that we got left in this 21-day course. But I want you to know about it as a technique and something to learn after we finish off this 17 days, okay? The 17 days we got left. All right, next up, rehabbing. Rehabbing is pretty straightforward. I buy a house that needs some TLC. I buy it at a price point that I'm paying below what the person's asking or below what it's worth because I'm going to put some money into it, fixing it up, and then I fix it up, and then I either resell it to make a chunk of change or I turn it into a rental. And for the most part, the core skill sets for rehabbing house don't change whether you're rehabbing to fix and flip or you're rehabbing to buy hold. What does change is how you spend your money, and what does change is the amount of money you invest, because typically if you're doing a rehab to hold as a rental, you will not put nearly as much money into the bathrooms and the kitchen, which are the most expensive items. Now, what skills do you need? Well, number one, you need to have a working knowledge of how to find deals both inside the MLS, the multiple listing service, which is what realtors use, and outside of the multiple listing service, or what's called FSBOs. Don't get too bogged down in what those terms mean today if you're hearing them for the first time, because we will have plenty of time to go into each one of those in detail over the next 17 days. Fundamentally, when it comes to the world of residential real estate, I'm talking residential, not commercial, there's only two ways to find properties. It's either in the MLS or it's a FSBO. FSBO is an acronym, FSBO, which stands for for sale by owner. Those are typically the only two ways you will find properties. You got to have marketing skills to find properties both ways, both in the MLS as well as FSBO, okay? You need to have a knowledge of how to properly structure the acquisition, because how you buy the property makes all the world of difference. And when it comes to buying, fixing, and flipping, or buying, fixing, and keeping, understanding that most hard money lenders will not make you a loan to buy, fix, and keep. Most hard money lenders are adamantly opposed to having you turn the property into a rental situation. So you kind of gotta have the right kind of lender in between. This class is not a class on rehabbing. I am not going to get into the details and the nuances and the differences in terms of the lenders, okay, in this class. But I do have another class on rehabbing, and I do have another class on financing. And we get into great depth on that, and we take, as I said to you guys yesterday, 90 days in both the rehabbing class and 90 days in the where to get the money class to explain those differences and also introduce you to those kinds of lenders. For this class, we just need to get the first deal done. Only thing we need is something called proof of funds. I'll talk more about that tomorrow and the day after. We don't need to get bogged down in, well, what are these different lenders and how these, no, I'm just telling you, if you're going to be successful as a rehabber, you need to understand how to get the right kind of money to make sure that your rehabbing strategy actually works. Because oftentimes the lender will dictate whether or not you're going to buy, fix, and flip, or you're going to buy, fix, and keep. Okay. All right. And then finally, most important, you better know how to manage a contractor. Trust me, I am not going to teach you how to manage a contractor in 21 days. Ain't going to happen. I couldn't do it if I wanted to, right? So we're not going to get eyeball deep into rehabbing in this class, but we do have a class on rehabbing, and Stephanie does an excellent job talking about how to feed and care and manage your contractor, because it's true. You make your money in real estate when you buy, and if you're doing rehabbing, all of it flies out the window when the contractor shows up if you don't know how to effectively manage the contractor, how to source them, how to screen them, and how to put the right agreements in place. And for goodness sake, make sure they don't get ahead of you when it comes to financing the deal. Okay. So, and by the way, in the next 17 days, we'll talk a lot about contractors, because I'm going to show you some case studies, and I'm also going to show you some deals that I've done and give you a little bit of tidbits here and there. But again, this is not a rehabbing class. I'll share some insights with you on how to do it effectively, but that's not the purpose of this class. The purpose of this class is to show you how to get the first deal done and get it done in 21 days. So we'll talk about it, but not anywhere near the depth that we would do like in the rehabbing class. Okay. So moving right along, we are speeding up. We're down to the last 3. Foreclosure consultant. And as I already mentioned, and I've already probably given enough detail, only a handful of states, Maryland, New Jersey, Illinois, I know for a fact, and somebody else has said Oregon, what is this, Oregon, and I'm scrolling back through all the comments. Man, you guys have been commenting like crazy. Oregon, and I can't remember the other state. But the bottom line is only a handful of states have, Oregon and Ohio. Thank you, Dorothy. Oregon and Ohio have, as well as Maryland, Virginia, sorry, not Virginia. Virginia does not have this law. Maryland, New Jersey, and Illinois, and one other state have what's called protection of homeowner type laws. We definitely have it in Maryland. In fact, Maryland's the most restrictive of the bunch. If you're going to be working directly with homeowners, well, you can't, as an investor, you can't work directly with homeowners if they're covered under that law. You have to work through an intermediary. The 2 kinds of intermediaries that you can work with are real estate agents, where the real estate agent is representing the seller, okay, and foreclosure consultants, okay? But I've already talked enough about what foreclosure consulting is. I'm not going to spend any more time on it. Which brings us to the last 2. Question was, can a realtor become a foreclosure consultant? You can, but you don't want to, because you are, well, actually, technically, Alicia, you can't, because foreclosure consultant requires a slightly different set of skills that is not typically covered under your brokerage operation. And as a result, the National Association of Realtors and the Maryland Association of Realtors strongly discourage realtors from becoming foreclosure consultants. And if you choose to do so, your broker's E&O insurance will not cover your activity as a foreclosure consultant. So if you do it, you need to make sure that you notify your broker that you're doing some foreclosure consulting or loan modification, and they will probably either dissuade you from doing it, or they'll make you sign a waiver, because it does put your E&O insurance at risk. And they have to notify their E&O insurance carrier that activities outside of real estate brokerage are occurring. So long story short, you kind of don't want to do it. If you are a realtor and you kind of got this thing down as a realtor. But if you're not a realtor and you're looking for a source of income and a way to sort of get into the game, it can be highly, highly, highly lucrative. And at some point in time, not tonight, I'll share a case study with you of Lisa Wood, who's a member who actually did exactly that. She came in, went through the 21-day course, got some additional training through a guy named Bruce Norton when the whole sort of PIFA thing was on the scene back in 2004, decided to get her real estate license, decided to have her real estate license and her foreclosure consultant license, did very, very well by having a lot of real estate agents refer business to her. That's sort of what I call the wealth acceleration phase. When you get so good at something that people just send business your way. And then after the law changed in 2008, she decided to give up her real estate license and just focus on being a foreclosure consultant, because she was getting too much friction trying to do both. Not for me, because her license was here. The broker, wasn't giving in her friction. I did tell her she was going to have to sign the waiver, but there's just there were too many things she had to do that put the foreclosure consultant and the realtor thing in conflict with each other. So she opted just to focus on being a foreclosure consultant. But she gets multiple six figures a year doing it. And most of her business, and I'd say 99.9% of her business, comes from referrals from other and mainly real estate agents who go, oh, you got a foreclosure or a short sale situation. Let me just go ahead and send you the lease. That's the other skill set she has. She's foreclosure consultant, loan modification specialist, CDPI, and short sale specialist. And those three things combined together, which kind of overlap each other, is enough for her to make a couple $100,000 a year working from home. So next up, let's get to the main event. And you're like, Sherman, can we end this? Hang in there with me for another couple minutes. We're almost done. Wholesaling. Wholesaling. What's wholesaling? Wholesaling requires a knowledge of how to find and evaluate properties to wholesale. It requires a working knowledge of the proper legal documentation to maintain control of the deal and actually get paid. And it will cause you to create what's called a buyer's list, so you can do things like rapidly resell properties and or reverse wholesaling and some of the more advanced wholesaling techniques. We're going to spend the next 17 days together talking about wholesaling. So I'm not talking about it tonight. See how quickly we get through these slides? But wholesaling is a fundamental technique that you can get deals done in 21 days or less, or since we got 17 days left together, I'm gonna show you what you need to know to get deals done in the next 17 days. And wholesaling is the perfect place to make that happen. But we're gonna spend more time on it, so I'm not gonna spend any more time on it tonight. And then the next one, a close, quote unquote, kissing cousin to wholesaling, but they're not quite the same. And I'll spend the next couple of days explaining why they're not exactly the same. But the next one that's very close to it is bird dogging. But bird dogging and wholesaling, while they have some overlapping skills, they're not exactly the same. Because in many jurisdictions in the United States of America, bird dogging requires you to have a license. And if you don't have that license, and many people who teach bird dogging kind of skip over that step, if you don't have that license and your state requires you to have a license, then you are doing it illegally. And we're going to have a very lengthy conversation, not tonight, but in a couple of days, as to why you don't want to do anything in this business illegally. Starting with the fact that if somebody screws you on your commission, there's nothing you can do about it, because you can't march into a courtroom and demand that the judge pay you or have the other person pay you when in fact what you were doing was an illegal act. And I'm going to talk about a very famous court case that happened in Washington, D.C. between Peggy Cooper Kafritz, the former chairman of the DC School Board and the co-founder of the Duke Ellington School for the Arts, and a guy named Don Peebles, Kafritz versus Peebles, where Peggy Cooper Kafritz sued Don Peebles for $1 million because he stiffed her on a bird dogging fee. And in the process, it was divulged that she didn't have the proper licensure. And therefore the judge said to her, Ms. Kafritz, while I am very sensitive to your situation, I cannot force Mr. Peebles to pay you the $1 million, because even though you had a contract with him, the contract was null and void because it was an illegal act. In the District of Columbia, when that contract was signed, it was illegal for you to do what you agreed to do. And even though you did what you agreed to do, I can't force Mr. Peebles to pay you $1 million finder's fee. Ooh, was she mad? By the way, you want to hear what happened in the resolution? Come back tomorrow, because that's tomorrow night's case study. Well, it's actually not the case study, but it is the focus of our teaching tomorrow. So bird dogging is basically requires time, energy, money, because you're out there beating the bushes. But you have to be careful that if you're doing bird dogging in the jurisdiction, the state, and the state requires you to have a license, you don't have the license, then you're doing it illegally. And the person who agreed to pay you the finder's fee, even if you have a written contract, quite frankly, doesn't have to pay you. Because no judge in the world, or at least in the United States, I shouldn't say the world, but no judge in the United States is going to force somebody to pay you when in fact you agreed to do an illegal act. All right. And I already see people asking questions about bird dogging and wholesaling. That's what we're going to be talking about over the next 17 days. So if you've got questions on either one of those topics, make sure that you are back here tomorrow. Now, here's your quick and dirty cheat sheet. You may want to take a picture of this, but we'll be talking about this some more over the next 17 days, right? Bottom line is this: 13 ways to make $100,000 or more a year, part-time while working from home. But not every one of these strategies is equal in terms of the skill set you need and the team you need to actually pull it off. And so I sort of a real quick sort of thing, real quickly, and I'm gonna give you a real quick explanation, but we'll go into more depth on this tomorrow. There's 5 phases. I talked about this the other day, and I talked about the day before, and I'm going to talk about this some more, so don't feel like Sherman's rushing through it. No, I'm not. But there's 5 distinct phases that most investors pass through on their way to experiencing what I call, that accelerated wealth and the legacy wealth. 5 phases are quick cash and understanding how to make quick cash, understanding how to generate quick cash, then chunks of cash, so your income almost doubles or triples. And then what I call cash flow, being in a position to actually own some income producing property so you can do the kinds of things we talked about yesterday and the day before in terms of like the idea, why real estate's the ideal investment. And then we get into wealth acceleration. Wealth acceleration normally happens sort of after your first year or so in the business, where you've sort of mastered a certain thing or a certain technique, one of those 13 strategies, and you get so good at it that people start talking about you. Like, oh, you got such and such a deal. We'll take it to Howard Johnson. Oh, you got such and such a deal with Stephanie. She's your woman. She's the one. Oh, you're working on a certain kind of thing. Oh, you need to go talk to Steve about that. Oh, you got that kind of situation. Oh, Lisa does that in her sleep. When people literally start bringing you business and you don't have to market for it, you don't have to beg for it, they just bring it to you because you're known as kind of the expert in that area. That's when you experience wealth acceleration. And then you're ready for that last step, which is sort of legacy wealth. Now, here's a little hint. Those arrows are sort of almost the same length, but the period of time of each one of these 5 strategies is not the same. Quick cash is something I can teach you in 21 days, and you can be experiencing and working on for the next month to 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And by the time you've experienced it for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you're ready to move on. In fact, many people, Howard Johnson, as a case in point, went through the quick cash phase in about a month and then was in the chunks of cash phase in his second, third month at Realinvestors. So it's not like it's going to take you a year to get through the first phase. No, you should be through that first phase in about a month or 2, and then moving into the chunks of cash phase. And maybe you're in that chunks of cash phase for 6, 7, 8 months, but then moving on to the cash flow. You should be looking to get your first cash flow and property within your first year of executing the strategy. And if you do this correctly, you'll position yourself to be there. And then the wealth acceleration, again, that's typically a year or 2 into the business. And then the legacy wealth is dependent upon who you got for kids or family that you want to hand this thing over to. I've been in this business for 20 years. I didn't really start doing the legacy wealth until about 3 or 4 years ago when my kids started being interested in the business. So I was 17 years in the business before I really got serious about this legacy wealth aspect. Although there were a little things I was doing here and there along the way, but didn't get serious about that last phase until about the last 2 or 3 years. So this is the progression that most investors go through. And I strongly recommend that you align these 13 strategies with that progression. Bird dogging, wholesaling, foreclosure consultant, those are quick cash strategies. Although quite frankly, foreclosure consultant takes a little bit longer because you got to sort of know what you're doing and get yourself set up. But they're quick cash. They're strategies where you're generating and turn around cash almost on demand very, very quickly. And then of course, chunks of cash strategies. Yes, you can make good chunks of cash wholesaling, but really chunks of cash is when you start getting into rehabbing or getting properties, nothing down that you then turn around and wholesale to somebody else, right? And then there's lease option, tax liens, sale leaseback, sub 2. Those are all, sort of chunks of cash strategies. I'm getting a little tongue tied. And then cash flow strategies are things like rehabbing to hold. Lease options are a great way to create cash flow. Sub 2, contract for deed, buy, hold, obviously is inherently cash flow. But then when you start getting the wealth acceleration, it's usually a little bit higher up. And then finally, that sort of legacy wealth is usually reserved for sort of those higher end, sort of invest in others, land development, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You looking to get your first deal done? This is where you are. You're here, quick cash. So let's focus on that and get it out of the way as quickly as possible so we can move on to these other things. And I would strongly recommend that you think about this as the same way as you would think about a ladder. In other words, you're climbing a ladder. There's a certain place you want to get to, that sort of legacy wealth, land development, notes paper, contract, like those higher end strategies. That's where you want to get to. But you don't ever get to the top of the Christmas tree by leaping up on the top rung so you can put the ornament at the top of the tree. No, you start on the first rung, and then you climb up one step, and then another step, and then another step, and maybe you climb those first 2 or 3 steps very quickly, and then you get about halfway up and you go, uh-oh, I'm up in the air now, let me slow it down, right? But think about it this way. If you jump on that first rung and you screw it up and fall off, how bad are you going to get hurt? Not badly at all. Maybe you'll sprain an ankle, maybe your pride will be hurt, but if you slip off the first rung, it ain't that bad. Slip off the second rung, you're gonna feel it. Slip off the third, fourth, or fifth rung, oh, you smarten. You may have to like go sit yourself in an Epsom salt bath. Fall off the top rung of the ladder. What did Mickey, Burgess Meredith and Mickey in the movie Rocky, what did Mickey say to Rocky in Rocky 2? When Rocky said, "You afraid I'm gonna get hurt a little bad?" Mickey said, "Nah, I'm afraid you're gonna get hurt permanent. Permanent." You try a real estate investing strategy that's at the top of the ladder and you have no experience, no foundation, no support, nothing in reserve, and you fall off that rung, you might likely be out of this real estate business permanently. We're going to spend the next 17 days talking about bird dogging, wholesaling, a little bit about foreclosure consulting. As you can see, there's 2 stars on bird dogging and wholesaling. You're going to know so much about bird dogging and wholesaling, I'm going to make you sick, but I'm also going to make you money. And I'm teaching you these 2 techniques, not because you're going to stay there forever. Quite frankly, just the opposite. I'm teaching you these 2 techniques so that you know them well enough to teach them to somebody else, like an employee or a contractor. And I don't mean like construction contractor, but like a subcontractor. In other words, I'm going to teach this to you well enough that you can start generating profits in the next 21 days, or what we got left, 17 days. And you're doing 10% of the work, but you're keeping 90% of the profits. And the only way that can happen, the only way we can get into that last week talking about automation, putting this thing on autopilot, is if you allow me to teach you these 2 techniques well enough that you can teach it to somebody else and then manage the process rather than doing it yourself. I'm here to teach you how to create a 6-figure business, put it on autopilot, so then you can go on to any one of these other strategies further up the ladder. And if you allow me the dignity and the respect and the opportunity to teach you how to get these 2 things under your belt in the next 17 days, you will automatically set yourself up to be making 6 figures while you are learning something else. Anybody here like this idea of having a business that's generating a 6-figure income so that you got money coming in if you want to go spend some time learning something else like lease option, contract for deed, rehabbing, buy whole, notes and paper, like having a little financial wherewithal so that you're ready to go ahead and go out and buy your first investment property and you're not sitting there scrambling talking about what am I going to have to sell, what am I going to have to give up, how much of my savings I have to use. I don't want you doing any of that stuff. But I want you to focus on this strategy, these 2 strategies well enough that you're ready to put them on autopilot sometime in the next 2 weeks. That's what we're here for. And I will coach you, teach you, mentor you, and get you where you want to be in terms of getting that first deal out of the way if we focus on the right thing and don't get distracted by the wrong thing. People, please stop asking me questions about tax liens. Stop asking me questions about rehabbing. We're not here today to learn that. That's a distraction. Sherman, you don't have assisted living on that list. Assisted living is a strategy that incorporates either buy whole, but you know what? You ain't doing assisted living in the next 17 days either. So don't ask me about that. The next 2 weeks. Let's get through the next 2 weeks and focus on really nailing and drilling down bird dogging and wholesaling so that we can actually start making money on it and then put it on autopilot so we can then pivot and talk about those other things. That be okay with you guys? That be all right with you? All right, one more slide and then we're out of here. I just want to get that out of the way. All right, lastly, as we already talked about, and I sent you guys the catalog, I know you guys want to learn about these other strategies. I know you guys want to learn about these other techniques. Trust me, Realinvestors is set up to teach you all of these 13 strategies, all of these 5 different phases, but we got to take it one step at a time. We gotta master the first rung of the ladder before we get up to the 10th rung of the ladder. And we're not going to start at the 10th rung of the ladder if we're just getting started. I sent you guys the course catalog. Do not look at the course catalog now. Do not look at the course catalog tonight. But sometime over the next 17 days we got together, go ahead and peruse that course catalog. Go, oh, look, there's a class on tax liens. Oh, look, there's a class on rehabbing. Oh my God, Sherman's got a whole class on how to raise money and do creative financing. And oh, look, he even has a class on it. Like, it's there. You already got it in your hands. It's in your inbox. Just don't look at it now. Let's focus on the first rung of the ladder, or first 2 rungs of the ladder, over the next 17 days. And starting tomorrow, we're going to roll up our sleeves and get to work. All right, last thing I got for you. Y'all said it. You know you want it. You know, it's like, Sherman, what's the case study for tonight? I got one more case study to share. I got a case study to share with you every night, but I thought this would be an appropriate case study to share with you tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and play the video one more time. I'm going to just go ahead and play it through my computer. So if you want to hang around with me, but it will be recorded. It will be uploaded. It's being uploaded right now into the Facebook page. If you want to watch it again later or watch it later, that's fine. But if you got your AHA sheet ready, here's our case study for today. You ready? And then we're done. Hey, Sherman Ragland, the Realinvestor. And I'm oftentimes asked, you know, Sherman, what exactly is that circular thing that you show in your videos and that you give us? And what exactly is that? And this is not really so much as of a logo, although I guess you'd call it a logo, as much as it is sort of a statement and a stand. And what it is it's 5 arrows in a circle, and each one of the arrows represents the different phases of what you go through as a real estate investor. And it's sort of the road that you travel along as you become a real investor. So, of course, the first one is quick cash. That's a skill set that every real estate investor needs, and I quite frankly think it's the first skill set that you should develop as a real estate investor on the road to becoming a real investor, learning how to generate literally, you know, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on demand within a week, within 2 weeks, within 21 days, because you're always going to need quick cash. I don't care how big you get in this business, you're always going to need a couple of $1,000 here and there for whatever reason. And sometimes it's just fun money, right? So quick cash and learning how to generate quick cash. And then, of course, the next phase you go through is what's called chunks of cash, where you go from making, you know, a quick 1,000 to 5,000 to generating 35,000 to 50,000, and some cases 100,000. And each one of these arrows represents a phase, but there's specific strategies, 3 or 4 specific strategies that goes behind each one of those phases. So the next phase is the quick cash. And then, of course, there is the cash flow. And that's, you know, when you really start to know that you are a real investor, because now you have income, passive income producing properties that allows you to do things like, you know, maybe take off for, I don't know, a month to some tropical paradise, and you're not worried about your bills getting paid because you have rental properties, you have assets that are generating an income stream every single month, every single month. And you can start living, truly living the real investor lifestyle. And then that 4th phase is what I call wealth acceleration. And wealth acceleration usually happens in your, I don't know, 2nd or 3rd year in the business, where you are so good at what you do that people start singing your praises, deals just start popping up in your email box, people just start referring things to you, and that's when your wealth really takes off. That's where you go from like 6-figure to 7-figure overnight. And in Realinvestors, we actually have a plan to show you how to get into each one of these phases, including that wealth acceleration phase. And then the last phase, the 5th phase, is what I call legacy wealth. And that's when you are literally passing on not only what you know, but also your assets onto the next generation, and understanding things like asset protection and using land trusts and LLCs creatively and all kinds of other tools to make sure that most of what you've spent a lifetime building or half a lifetime building, as the case might be, doesn't wind up in the hands of the government and the taxpayer. So each one of those 5 phases represents really the journey that you go along as you become a real investor. So the question is, Sherman, why is it in a circle? And I guess there's 3 reasons why it's in a circle. Number one is it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool looking, isn't it? I think it's kind of cool looking, right? That's part of the reason. But the fundamentally the more important reason is because once you go through each one of those 5 phases, the single smartest thing you can do personally is to teach somebody else. Teach a child, teach a spouse, teach somebody that you really deeply love and care about, so that they too can join you in the land of wealth and freedom. They too can get on the path to becoming a real investor. So the idea and the goal is not to learn it well enough to make it happen for you, but to learn it well enough to teach it to somebody else. And that's the reason why it's in a circle. And the third final reason is the simple truth of the matter is legacy wealth, that last phase, is not about you making a lot of money and putting everything in land trust and handing it over to your kids. There's too many horror stories about families where the first generation makes all the money and then the second generation blows it on stupid stuff. So if you really want to really create legacy wealth, something to pass on to the next generation, you should learn each one of those 5 phases or the preceding 4 phases well enough that you're not only passing along money, you're not only passing along real estate, you're not only passing along wealth, you're also passing along the knowledge as to how you did it so that they too can do it for themselves. And that's where you create what I call perpetual legacy wealth. So that's why this is, in the form of a circle. Each one of the outer rings, those arrows, represents the 5 phases. And of course, all of it ultimately leads towards becoming a real investor. And it's the reason why Real Investors and the Realinvestors Academy and online REIU or Real Investors U exists, to help you successfully transverse each one of those 5 phases and to successfully become a real investor. All right, guys. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being Sherman, don't ever call me again. 5 meaning I'll be back here tomorrow. How we do today? How we do? Be honest. Yeah. Okay, good. We've done better. Nobody gave me any 3s today. Somebody gave me 3s today. Like, what'd I do? All right, guys. So again, next 17 days, we're going to really roll up our sleeves, tear into this bird dogging, wholesaling, every aspect of wholesaling, from standard wholesaling, reverse wholesaling, using wholesaling as a technique and a tool to build our 7-figure buyers list, full service wholesaling, so that you guys just totally got this under your belt and then can put it on autopilot and then move on. Very funny, Robert. Robert gave me 4+1. All right, so anyway, if you do have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the Facebook group. Your homework for tonight, I'm letting you off easy. Watch that video I just showed you again. It's in Facebook. Write down what your aha moments are and then upload your aha moments. And just be prepared to work really hard. We won't go as long tomorrow because you're going to have a fairly healthy homework assignment. But we are going to dig in and start doing some serious homework. And I'll be critiquing your homework as you upload it into the Facebook group. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Appreciate you very much. Appreciate your being here with me and hanging there with me. And I'll see you in the Facebook group. Okay. Anybody got any other questions before we get out of here? Feel free to type in the chat box. Otherwise, put it on the Facebook page so everybody can see your question and can see my answer.